The bases dropped on a Friday night edition of Soccer Down Here. My name's Jason Longshore. Thanks for hanging out tonight. No John Nelson. He is off on high school football duty. Quarterfinals of the high school football playoffs. You can watch John on Georgia Public Broadcasting here at 7 o'clock. We've got a few things to talk about. Some news out of Major League Soccer. MLS Cup tomorrow. We'll be missing Darlington Nagbe. We'll be missing Pedro Santos. What do the Columbus Crew do in response? We will potentially find out, but we'll talk about some of the potential solutions tonight. We've got some other news around MLS. The Minnesota United Loons roster could look a little different in 2021. Kevin Molino out of contract. They're negotiating. Luis Amarilla, they're negotiating. The Loons could be a really different side after it was a really good side this year. Be curious to see how much change we see there. And look, we're all waiting to see what the latest Bomba de Cesar Luis Merlo could be. He tweeted out at 5:37 p.m. on Friday, Noticia de último momento, breaking news on Heinze and Atlanta United. Soon, more details on my Instagram at CLMerlo5 and on the Twitter account of Super Deportivo. And it is at Super Deportivo. So we're waiting to see what this could be. That was about 20 minutes ago, about 30 minutes ago. Well, here we go. I will go ahead and give you, it's not breaking news because it's not announced by the team. But why don't we play it with this one then? If I could do things right when I'm on here by myself, I always screw it up, right? Let's try again. How about that, drummer? Your headline in Super Deportivo is Gabriel Heinze, nuevo director técnico del Atlanta United de la MLS. I think you know what that means. So this is beyond the 95% that Gabriel Heinze says. 2 seasons, which had been reported. Argentine reached an agreement according to Merlo. Now, a couple of things to know how this has gone over the last maybe 48 hours. Chile is looking to have an opening at their managerial position. And Gabriel Heinze's name came up a lot in not just fans and not just local media, but reportedly in the Chilean Federation. And when you look at Gabriel Heinze's mentor, Marcelo Bielsa, and the pathway that Bielsa took, well, it makes some sense that Chile would be something that they would be looking at Heinze, who is described as the most Bielsa-like manager out there, who is not Bielsa. And it would make sense for Heinze to potentially consider it. Don't know if there were ever any real considerations. Don't know if there were ever any real conversations. But that had been reported. There were also reports floating around about Internacional in Brazil. They are about to have some presidential elections. There were candidates who were mentioning Heinze very positively. So there was speculation along that side. So Cesar Luis Merlo in Super Deportivo, which is am.com.mx, Mexican outlet, has reported that in a few days, Gabriel Heinze will sign a contract until December of 2022 to be the manager at Atlanta United. Now, we've talked about Heinze's career. Started at Godoy Cruz. He was still getting his certifications, his badges. He wasn't able to be on the bench. He wasn't even able to direct training sessions on a regular basis. Then he went to Argentinos Juniors. They were in the second division, a 44-game marathon of a season. Heinze won the league, got them promoted back to the first division. Then he stepped away. Did not continue with that project. Stepped away, took about half of a year off, and was hired at Vélez going into the summer break, which is December in Argentina. Going into that break, had a chance to kind of do a training camp, a midseason training camp with the squad. Jumped in the middle of the 17-18 season and did very well. His first games were in January of 2018. Righted the ship that was starting to add a lot of negative points to the Promedios table. Relegation in Argentina is done over a 3-year period. It was trending in the wrong direction. Heinze fixed that. You're first full year at Velez, 6th place finish. Good finish for Velez. There was the thought of maybe getting to another level. Velez is probably about the 6th, 7th biggest club in Argentina, to be fair. They're outside of the 5 Grandes, but they are a club that's won an Intercontinental Cup. They're a club that's won the Copa Libertadores. Heinze did not win the Argentine title. You're talking about a Boca squad and a River squad that are in some of the greatest form that they've been in recent times, and he wasn't able to jump that hurdle. He did qualify for the Copa Sudamericana in his first full year with Velez. Year 2, which completed in March, finished 3rd overall, and that combined with what Velez has done in domestic play in the Copa Diego Armando Maradona, which was the League Cup that they're doing as kind of an in-between seasons right now because of the pandemic. That combined with what Heinze did with Velez during the season, and it was actually announced today that Velez will be in the next edition of the Copa Libertadores. That's a huge accomplishment, and Gabriel Heinze's season had a huge factor in that. So now the reporting is that he will sign a 2-year deal. He will be joining Atlanta United. The deal will be signed next week, according to Cesar Luis Merlo. He had reported earlier in the week that it was 95% done. That's all the reporting. There's really nothing else extra from Merlo, but he is saying, translated, Gabriel Heinze, new manager of Atlanta United in MLS, will sign a 2-year deal. So there you go. Love to hear your thoughts. Love to hear how you feel about this. Again, it is not official because it has not been announced, but Cesar Luis Merlo is you want to call him a Tier 1 source, you want to call him an A+ source, you want to call him whatever rank you have on this stuff. He's legit. He's not a small-time outlet. He's not somebody known for reporting stuff that does not necessarily come true. Anything can change. We know this. It's not done until the announcement happens. But this is the closest we've had to a real story on this since Merlo himself commented on it for the first time. So let's get your comments. If you are hanging out on the Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/soccerdownhere, y'all know how the drill goes. Join into the stream chat. I'm flying solo for a while. Jarrett Smith will hopefully be joining in for a little while shortly. So if you have questions, this is going to be kind of a Q&A type of show. If you're listening on our Soccer Down Here app live, if you're listening on soccerdownhere.net live, you can join the conversation tweeting at us at Soccer Down Here. You can also tweet at me directly, which I'll have up as well, at Longshoe. If you want to send an email, you can do that too, soccerdownhere@gmail. If you listen to this later, go ahead and send in your questions. We will have a power hour in the morning. We will be doing a viewing party, a watch-along for MLS Cup tomorrow night starting at 8 o'clock. Kickoff will be about 8:40. That's going to be only on Twitch. Sunday, Jarrett and I will have our 5th annual MLS half-day trade window show to see what happens. That'll be starting at noon on Sunday. Monday will be very busy. We'll have our normal Monday morning show for the first time in a few days after I've been filling in over at 92.9. And then Monday night, we'll have trivia with Soccer in the Streets, and Kevin Egan is joining us for that. We'll also have Andy Bunker from 92.9 The Game. He's doing a round of trivia with us. And then we'll have soccer over there after trivia is done. So we will have plenty of time to get to a lot of stuff if you have questions and you're listening later. So I'm curious as to what the reaction is to this. I'm very curious to hear how people respond. Gabriel Heinze is a manager, as we've said, 3.5 years of experience. He has really captured the imagination of a lot of analysts, a lot of experts on the game. You see the reaction that Marcelo Bielsa's teams get. Gabriel Heinze has been described as very Bielsa-like. That's what you might have to look forward to here in Atlanta. So we'll get into that. We'll get into his history. We'll get into wherever you want to go. But that is the reporting. If you just joined in a little bit late, Cesar Luis Merlo had kind of teased this about 5:30. He is saying it is a deal that is done and that Gabriel Heinze will be coming to Atlanta United. He had reported 95% earlier in the week. If you have questions about other stuff too, we'll get into it. Like I said, this is going to be a Q&A kind of show. Okay. I'm going to scroll back just a bit, and then we're going to get rolling. One thing that I know is going to come up, I don't know when and if this will be announced. Is it going to happen after CONCACAF Champions League? That could definitely be a strong bit of speculation. That game is on Wednesday. Could it happen after that? Wouldn't be surprised. Could it happen before that? Sure. It's out there now, at least from Merlo. That's not going to stick in just the Spanish language media or in the Argentine media or in the Mexican media for very long. That's going to start to spread in the U.S. media very quickly. So does that change the timeline? We'll just have to wait and see. Hello, Modiflow, Uncle No Pocket, Sam Williamson, Captain Ragamuffin, D. Graham, Badgermon, Shiva's in the house, Six Gears in the house. Lots of time to get to questions. Badger, I didn't need my 8 years of Spanish language instruction to get the message. Yeah, Cesar made it pretty good for us. Maybe he did that intentionally, knowing there were a lot of eyes coming from Atlanta. I've just signed up for Babbel, by the way, so I'm going to try to get much better with my Spanish. I read it fairly well. I don't speak it well at all. I understand it. Audio terms, pretty good. I want to get better. So I've committed. I've signed up to Babbel. I am going to work really hard to try to get better as we go forward, and maybe I'd say won't get mad at me for having very poor Spanish skills. I hope not. I don't want him mad at me. Six Gear asked about Eels After Dark. Again, I don't expect any announcement from Atlanta United immediately. I mean, it could be wrong. Let's not completely get this out of whack. It could be wrong, but that's the reporting right now. Merlo has been right on many things before, so this is where we stand. Okay. So Ragamuffin asks, can Heinze coach set piece defending better than Bielsa? There are going to be people who do not like the Bielsa style. There are going to be people who will pick holes in different elements of it. And look, as we've talked about on the show, Leeds, I don't know what the expectations realistically were. I thought they could be around 10th. That was kind of the upper end of my spectrum for them. I mean, if crazy things happen, they could get into the top 10. I didn't see them challenging for Europe, anything like that. It's year one in the Premier League, and they didn't have a dramatic roster overhaul. So he's doing about what I would think, maybe a little bit less, but then you factor in the effects of the pandemic on his style of play. And it's going to affect, I think, a team that plays in his style maybe a little more than some other teams. Because his style is pretty uncompromising. And Gabriel Heinze has been, from what we have seen so far, with his time at Vélez, with his time at Argentinos Juniors. He wants to play the way that he wants to play. Now, that's going to be a question as we look at Major League Soccer. And Tata Martino went through this. Frank de Boer went through this. Every manager from another league who doesn't have that understanding of what MLS is goes through this. The travel is different on a regular basis than managers are accustomed to. Now, we go again to what 2021 could be. Might not be that bad, especially early on. That could change the trajectory here, right? If you're playing a lot of games against Orlando, Miami, Nashville, maybe a Texas team here and there, DC, Columbus, you're talking 2-hour flights. Maybe it's not going to be as brutal as it normally would. Maybe it's not going to be like we saw early on with Tata Martino, where you went to Vancouver and it was a difficult match. And that starts to trickle down and it affects the next day of training because there isn't a next day of training. You're recovering from a 5-hour flight. Then you're back to training. Schedules get changed. It's very different. Tata Martino evolved over 2 years and adjusted his style. Gabriel Heinze might have a little bit easier road because of the pandemic effects in some ways. But if the season starts later, which is being proposed, it could be a harder road because of the schedule compression. These are going to be things we're talking about going forward into next season. Can he coach set-piece defending better than Bielsa? This has come up with every manager. It came up in 2017. It came up in 2019. I will say it right now. There will be issues with set pieces next year. He will be working to really define his way of playing. If it's Heinze, if it's somebody else, if something gets crazy. he will be defining his way of playing. The focus will be on possession. The focus will be on the field of play. Set piece work will have to come a little bit later. So there will be some mistakes. And the team won't take advantage of set pieces outside of individualism. That's the trade-off, because his style of play demands a lot of work. You're not going to carve out time in training sessions to work on defending corners. Why not? Because they don't happen that often. What happens more, corners or the run of play? The run of play, and that's what you're going to focus on. I would expect the set piece work would get better over time, but don't expect it to be great day one. That's where you're going to have a bit of a trade-off. Tiki Taka ATL says, and welcome Tiki Taka, would be cool if he watched the Wednesday game from the stands. I don't think he can get in the country that quick. We got to remember, too, we're talking about visas, and maybe it's a tourist visa, visitor visa first, and then he's got to get a work visa. There's all the COVID restrictions, and I don't know if there's any coming from Argentina. I don't know. I don't know where that goes. I would assume he's not going to be able to get in that quick. I'll assume he'll have the game on, and I'd assume he's had probably a lot of the games on from this season to get a good feel for this group. Absolutely. Winter Wind, yeah. 3TH, yep. We're all trying to get better with the Spanish, that's for sure. Sam Williamson with a good question. How's he going to feel about reporters in the locker rooms? It's a big difference, and he is not known for being all that forgiving, maybe is a word to use, understanding of the media side of things. He doesn't enjoy that side of the job, and a lot of coaches don't. I mean, I don't know if y'all heard Bill Belichick's comments after the game last night when he was asked about, is Cam Newton going to be your starter next week? Yes, he's a starter. They said something else. Oh, yeah, it was a great question. It's a great question. But I answered, he's a starter. I mean, you could tell he didn't want to be there. He didn't want to talk to anybody. He didn't want to answer the question. Are you going to get that? I don't know. Maybe sometimes. You're also going to get him questioning people back when they ask questions. He's going to ask why they're asking that question. And he's also going to be very thorough in his explanations. That's something that he has picked up from Marcelo Bielsa. Bielsa will explain everything. He has no problem doing that. He feels like his way of playing, his ideas about the game are stronger. He doesn't care about giving away how he thinks about the game. That doesn't really bother him. So it could be really interesting in those post-game situations, but this is a different conversation entirely. Reporters in the locker room takes it to a different level. It's not something he's going to be used to straight away. We'll see if that becomes a source of friction. I don't know. I would assume he knows about it now. I would assume he talked to Tata Martino as well when this approach happened, because he played for Tata Martino, who would know what it's like to be in Atlanta in Gabriel Heinze's orbit more than one of his former managers, Tata Martino. So I'm sure they've had conversations. I'd be pretty shocked if they hadn't, and I'm sure that would be something that Tata would have warned him about, maybe is one way to put it, explained maybe why it is, and tried to give him a little bit of guidance on it. Let's see what we have. Sixth Gear, do you think Darren didn't want this to come out? Of course not. That's why you don't announce it beforehand. Sean, that's that's how this goes, though. They do a really good job at Atlanta United of keeping a tight lid on things. However, this is coming from somebody who's not in Atlanta. This is coming from somebody who, I don't know, could be connected to Heinze himself, could be connected to an agent. People start talking, word starts to spread. That's outside of the club's control. But it's the nature of the business. I mean, I remember when the team name leaked, and that was actually in the United States. Brian Strauss of Sports Illustrated got that information and dropped it out there before Atlanta United had their big announcement of what the logo and the crest would and the name would be. And they made the best of it because this is part of the business. You'd love to have your own bomba, your own big surprise, but if you can't make that happen, then you have to roll with it. So I'm curious to see what the U.S. response is to this. I'm curious to see what the American pundits are going to say about this. That's what I'll be looking for. Okay. So, Shiva, you're caught up. Sixth Gear, nope, I am not. Nobody wants me to be the manager of Atlanta United. I would not want that at all. I don't want you guys to have to deal with that. Shiva, I'm with you. Shiva says, I feel so sorry for Nagby. The Sounders have had enough cups and they don't need another one. They would argue with you on that. They would absolutely argue that with you. They're greedy, and I don't blame them. That's what they do. But I feel horrible for Darlington. He posted a message explaining what happened, and everybody's okay right now, but he tested positive for COVID. Pedro Santos also tested positive for COVID. Those are two players who are going to be very difficult to replace for the Columbus Crew in the final tomorrow night. I'm wondering if Columbus gets very defensive. I'm wondering if they sit back deep and try to frustrate Seattle. I think that's probably going to be their best route. So we'll see, and we'll maybe get a little more hints of that overnight and in the morning. We'll talk about it deeper on the Power Hour tomorrow. And we're going to do our watch-along starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Kickoff is reported to be 8:41. So we'll have plenty of time to kind of preview stuff ahead of time. That will be only on Twitch. If you guys listen on the podcast or listen on the app, you'll have to join us on Twitch, twitch.tv/soccer down here for the watch-along. Uncle No Pockets having a good day, building a Lego Star Destroyer, Atlanta United coaching rumors, legal Oregon items. It's a great Friday. Good stuff, Unc. I'm glad you're having a good one. Six Gear says, Columbus lost the final once Minnesota blew it. I think maybe Minnesota might have beaten Columbus. Columbus could have played Seattle straight up with their full complement of players. I really think they could have. It's going to be different now. Santos, you can replace. You have a drop-off. You can replace him. You have a good drop-off. That's not even fair. But you can replace him. Nagby, you're looking, and this was something that I looked at early in the season. I think we saw it when Nagby was hurt earlier in the year, and we're going to see it tomorrow. You're turning to either Sebastian Berhalter or Aiden Morris, homegrown players in their first professional season. It's probably who you're turning to here, unless you're going to change a lot of things. And I don't know if you have time. Caleb Porter said that he learned about it at practice yesterday. So they had a session today, and they play tomorrow. It's not like you can really redo a tactical setup. You just have to plug and play. And that's probably going to be Morris, it sounds like. And the homegrowns have done well, but they're homegrowns, and they're going to be in an MLS Cup final as a homegrown. And they're going to be playing a midfield that is very, very good with Nico Ladero, with Joao Paulo, with Cristian Roldan. It's a lot for a teenager. It's a lot for a teenager to handle. Aiden Morris will be in a very tough spot. Now, I'm sure Caleb Porter will try to do everything he can to take some of the pressure off of him, to find ways to make it easier for him, but he's still going to have to play, or somebody's going to have to play in that spot. It's going to be very, very difficult. Sorry, I'm getting messages as we try to plan out stuff as news breaks and rumors break and bombas fall. So this is where it gets hard when I'm solo because I'm still talking, but I have to do other things too. Welcome to How It Can Be. It's funny times. Tiki Taka ATL, and I'll get this and I'll try to type at the same time. Could Seattle really not re-sign Schmetzer if he wins yet another cup? I think it's possible that they couldn't re-sign him. A lot of it's going to depend on how much he is asking for. That's the challenge here because he's reportedly making $600,000 a year. He's watched a lot of managers come into the league and get a lot of money. I wonder what he's asking for because he sounded very annoyed about the situation in his first reports, right? With The Athletic, his first comments. He sounded very, very annoyed. And is that because he asked for too much and he was told that they couldn't pay that? Was it because they came with an offer that he didn't like first? We don't know. But I would imagine, especially if he wins another cup. If he wins another cup, the price is going up, right? If he gets 3 in 5 years, yeah, he's going to be asking for everything you could think of. And if they don't do it, how's that going to go over? Now, also on the Seattle front, and I've I've mentioned this before. I've wondered if financial implications are coming into play here. I've wondered if they're having to be careful with expenditures, and maybe he is asking for too much. And they have Gonzalo Pineda. Gonzalo Pineda is going to interview again with DC United, according to Stephen Goff. He has interviewed in the past. He is a finalist for that job. Maybe, and I don't know this for sure, but I wonder if maybe they are thinking that's how we keep the continuity, that's how we keep the cost down. This relationship has issues. We're going to move on. The thing that makes it complicated, Tiki Taka, is I don't think Schmetzer is out like trying to find another job. I don't think he would be wanting to leave. I talked to Andy Bunker about this when I was over at 92.9 the last couple of days, and Andy grew up in the Seattle area. He knows the area inside out. He bought his first cleats at Schmetzer's soccer shop. Like, Brian Schmetzer, his family, owned the first soccer stores in Seattle. And he's got roots upon roots upon roots in Seattle. He played for the Sounders. He coached the USL version of the Sounders. He's been an assistant and now the head coach with the Seattle Sounders in MLS from day one. I don't think he wants to leave. But professional pride kicks in at some point. He's going to need to be paid properly. And if that doesn't happen there, does he say, you know what, I'm not going to take a bad deal? Or does he, out of loyalty, say, okay, this is the best I can get, and I don't want to go anywhere, so I'm going to take it, but does that damage the relationship? It's not being talked about a ton, but I'm really curious that we are at this stage, unless there's a deal already done, and they're just going to announce it after the fact. Wouldn't you benefit from announcing it beforehand? So if it's not done, what happens on Sunday? They've got to finalize their options. I mean, I'm sure they've already done this pretty much. They haven't told anybody yet. You're not going to tell a player, like, yeah, we're not picking up your option and we need you to have a big game in the final. But that all starts on Sunday. You've got a trade window Sunday morning from 9 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern time. What if somebody comes in with an offer that you can't refuse? What if somebody comes in for an offer for Nico Ladero? He's got 1 year left on his contract. What if somebody comes in with a big offer and you got to take it? You know, are you going to have a manager in place to talk to about this, or does it matter? I don't know. I think Garth Lagerwey has probably involved Schmetzer in some decisions over the years. But are they going to move forward together? I'm fascinated by it because it's been really quiet. Soccer for Good OG, hello, welcome. Good to see you. We've got the Soccer in the Streets trivia on Monday, raising money for the kids over there. And if you didn't see, Andy Bunker's going to join in. He hasn't picked his category yet, but he's going to come up with 10 questions. After I smoked him on Sports Jeopardy today on 92.9, because you guys who were listening sent in a bunch of soccer questions. And he was really struggling because y'all went obscure with things. It was great. I had a good time. Thank you for that. Turner Kirby, what's up, Ropes? Good to see you. Turner Kirby says, heading down to Orlando for my graduation trip on Wednesday. Anyone with connections that can sneak me into the stadium? Kidding. Maybe. Is it behind closed doors? I don't know if I've seen that. I think it is, but they had fans before, so I'm not 100% sure, to be perfectly honest, Turner. Shiva says, do you think a 2-year contract is smart from Atlanta? And again, this is because of the reporting from Cesar Luis Merlo that Atlanta United will be signing Gabriel Heinze early next week to a 2-year deal. Shiva, I think it's probably all you can get because you're not going to sign somebody to a 5-year deal. He hasn't managed 5 years in his life. That's not realistic. What if it doesn't work out? And then you have to make a move within a year and a half, let's say. And you're on the hook for 3.5 more years. That's a lot of money. You know, it doesn't make sense to do business that way. And I don't think Gabriel Heinze would be interested in that either because he is interested in moving on to Europe. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's any surprises to it. He was in the running for the Marseille job in France earlier this year. Didn't get it. Andre Villas-Boas did. So I think on both sides it makes sense. You have to be careful because we've seen it so many times in sports where managers, coaches are signed to a long-term deal and it doesn't work. And then you got to pay them out. And then you're stuck and you're hampered financially. We see it happen in colleges all the time. There was a lot of shock when John Gruden with the Las Vegas Raiders signed a 10-year deal. That's unheard of. That's craziness. It's worked out okay so far, but does it continue to? Or are you going to be eating years of the contract? Atlanta United's not in a position to where they have to overextend themselves to get a good manager. Gabriel Heinze is a good manager. They don't have to get stuck potentially with a lot of lame duck years on the deal. And he, Gabriel Heinze, probably isn't looking to get committed for more than a couple of years as well. His style, and remember, his mentor is Marcelo Bielsa. Marcelo Bielsa is not known for being at a club for a long period of time. There were even some surprises that he stayed with Leeds after year one. Then not as much after year two going into the Premier League. But does he stay for another year in Leeds? There's no guarantee of that. 3 years is a long time for Marcelo Bielsa. 4 is unheard of. I don't think he's had a 4-year run in his career at a club. National team, different conversation. At a club, it's draining. And for guys who work in this way, Heinze and Bielsa, they need to recharge. They ask a lot of the players that they have. They ask a lot of the clubs that they're at. That well runs dry at some point, and you have to change. They have to change. Pep Guardiola talked about his last year at Barcelona, year 4. He said he didn't have anything else to give, and that's why he walked away. He took a whole year off. He stayed at Manchester City longer than we thought. Jurgen Klopp stayed at Liverpool longer than we thought. Well, that's at the elite of the elite of the elite. At this level, managers are looking for a big opportunity after the fact, after this deal. And the clubs kind of know that, all right, there's a little more risk here. We've got to protect ourselves as well. I think a 2-year deal makes sense. Burns says, did you see that MLS Soccer retweeted Gustavo's thread about Heinze? I did not see that. That is awesome. That is very, very cool. Like I said, Gustavo, when we connected with him, it was the first game it was the first game that was on radio, and it was on ESPN Coastal out of Savannah and Brunswick, and it was the game over in Charleston, Atlanta, and Seattle. And Gustavo found us, and he was tweeting at me during the game from Buenos Aires, and I'm like, this is awesome. And he found us on 92.9 and has been tweeting at us there and listening to Soccer Down Here ever since. So it's good to have somebody on the ground in Argentina. It's good to have somebody who's bilingual on the ground in Argentina who can help us out with some of this different stuff. And I think he has really good takes on the game. As Gustavo said, he's not a journalist. He's not a coach, but he follows the game intensely. He gives us his opinions, but his opinions are also based on work. They're not just thrown out there willy-nilly. So, yes. And as Mike Conti tweeted just a couple minutes ago, we will be doing a stoppage time tomorrow at noon to add to the fun content this weekend to talk about more of this. So if we miss anything today, we'll talk about it there. We'll probably repeat ourselves a little bit because it is a little bit different audience, and we'll continue on. Okay. Turner, I'm probably going to catch a lot of Heinze questions, so the other stuff I might go through a little quicker here. If I don't hit something you want, just remind me and we'll get to it. Turner says, do you think we'll have any East-West crossover at all next year, or are we looking to 2022 before that? I actually think we will. I think it'll be in the second half of the year. I think they'll structure the calendar to be unveiled in chunks. And 2 is easy, maybe not enough of a separation. I think they might do it in thirds or maybe even quarters of the schedule. Do 10 games at a time, do 8 games at a time, go a couple of international windows at a time. I think you're going to need to, because you're going to need to be flexible next year. You're also going to need to try to get as many games with people in the stands as possible. You're not going to want to have those long trips until you're comfortable with them, until maybe all your players are vaccinated. And that's going to be something that comes up. The NBA might be the first league in that position to have a league-wide vaccination program. That could be something that comes up. It's been discussed so far with Adam Silver. MLS would be the next one potentially, along with Major League Baseball, that would be looking at something like that. Okay. Sixth gear, don't give up free kicks near the box, set piece defending solved. Well, yeah, but there's corner kicks too, These things do happen. You will have some issues. You will. You definitely will have some issues. A lot of back and forth. I don't know how things will go with the media, with this, with that, with Gabriel Heinze if he gets hired. He is known to have issues at times with the media. He tells you what he thinks. I love that. He is very transparent. He will explain how his teams play. He will explain what he thinks went well, what he thinks didn't go well. And he will explain when he thinks a question isn't right or isn't fair. He will. He's an open book. And I like that. I do. Sam Williamson says, Mezit to MLS, if we could get him, would he be a good fit in the Heinze system? I don't think he would. I don't think he would because I don't know if he'd give you enough from a pressing perspective. I think Osil would be a better fit. He's actually been linked already. Let's see who we got for Osil. DC had come up before. The LA Galaxy have been linked with him, according to James Ollie at ESPN. And now Inter Miami is being linked as well. There was a report in Turkey earlier this week that he would be joining Fenerbahce. That has not been finalized just yet. His contract is up at the end of the Premier League season. He can sign a pre-contract wherever he wants to go in January if he wants to. I can't leave until the end of the season and with Arsenal, but could he come to MLS? Yeah, I actually think he could. I don't think Atlanta's the best fit for him. I think you're going to look for either a different kind of number 10, probably a younger one who's more of a two-way player, and that would move Marcelino Moreno more to an 8, or you're going to look for a different kind of wing option, or you're going to use the bulk of your budget on player acquisition on a 6. And that's the spot that's going to be interesting. The midfield trio, I'm curious to see it because the 6 is so vital in a Bielsa, Gabriel Heinze system. We see it with Calvin Phillips with Leeds. It's maybe the most important position. And I think it was a position of need anyway. That's going to be a position where you're going to want some input there. Also, and this has been all over the place since the Doble on Maria piece dropped about Heinze and what he's going to do going forward. Javier Mascherano, who is a 6 who's retired but could be joining that coaching staff. There's been more reports that he isn't than is, but there were a few that said it was still possible. Fernando Gago has been seen with Gabriel Heinze multiple times. Maybe he is going to go into coaching. That is one big question when it comes to Heinze, because his lead assistant at Vélez is going to try to get his own first-team job. Sebastian Sejas wants to be a head coach on his own. So that means Heinze is going to need a number 2. Who is that? And is it going to be somebody like a Gago who he's played with and who has played for him and probably knows him very, very well, but has no coaching experience? Or are you going to bring in somebody as the 2 with more experience, maybe somebody who knows the league, and then have Gago as maybe the number 3? So he's learning, but he's going to be very, very helpful because he is literally just coming from the field. He played for Vélez under Heinze during the time he was there. He played into the tournament now and wasn't able to continue past that. He's had a lot of injuries. So that will be very, very interesting to see. Okay, El Mataflow talking about Osil. I doubt a traditional enganche would be a good fit in a Bielsa-esque system. It can, but it doesn't fit with the rest of the roster, in my opinion, because Marcelino Moreno can be an 8, absolutely. But I don't see him playing deeper, and I think if you play in the system with more of a traditional enganche, you're going to have two guys behind him. Now, one can jump up from time to time, sure, but you're going to need two to sit deeper. You'd almost need a double pivot there. And Heinze's teams have played some with a double pivot. From what I've seen, they play more often with a single pivot, a single holding midfielder with two in front. So that's what could fit this team a little bit better, to be honest, when you look at the pieces that you have right now. And he's not going to take the job without looking at Emerson Hyndman, without looking at Mateus Rossetto, without looking at Mo Adams, without looking at Eric Remedi. He's going to look at those guys, and he's going to say, do I have the midfield trio I need now? Eric Remedi's played a solo six in a little bit different style at Bonfield, but he's played that. Is he going to be somebody that Heinze's comfortable with, or do you need to go get a six? Does he maybe see Remedi as an 8? Does he maybe see Hyndman or Rossetto as an 8? Or is that going to be a position where you have a surplus to requirements? I can't wait to see that. That's the one I'm going to be zeroed in on if this deal gets done. What happens in the central midfield for sure. A lot of talk about Ozil. I really do like Mesut Ozil, Sam Williamson. I do. I just don't know if he's a good fit. Burned, actually, Gabriel Heinze tried to go to Liverpool at one point. Doug is a big Liverpool fan. Conversation about Doug being a Liverpool fan. Heinze tried to go to Liverpool. He tried to force a move to Liverpool, and Sir Alex Ferguson was not happy about that. At the end of his time at Manchester United, he ended up going to Real Madrid instead. That's kind of a nice fallback. But maybe that won't be too bad. Lots of back and forth with your fandom and stuff. I love it. It's fun. Uncle No Pockets about this contract says 2 years is preferable at this point. I just think it makes sense for everybody involved. I really do. Monteflo with some sad news, and it makes me sad. Moises Caicedo of Independiente del Valle is reportedly either moving to Marseille or Sporting Lisbon. The dream is dead. Monteflo, you've ruined my evening. Didn't think it would happen. I wished it would have happened, but it's not going to happen. Now, there is another update, and Monteflo, you probably already know this, but Boca Juniors is negotiating with Independiente del Valle over right back Angelo Preciado, 22-year-old, valued at $1.3 million, 7 caps for the national team. He scored a great goal a couple nights ago for Independiente del Valle against Emelec. Played on the wing in that match, too. Preciado's a good talent. Looks like he's going to go to Boca. I'll be curious to see for how much. There's also talk about Ramirez, the manager at Independiente del Valle, being the favorite for the Internacional job in Brazil, but his name has come up everywhere else as well, the same that Heinze's have. Chile is reportedly interested. Chile's reportedly interested in Hernan Crespo of Defensa y Justicia as well, potentially Ariel Hollan, who is with Universidad Católica in Chile. Also, Jose Peckerman, formerly of Argentina, formerly of Colombia. His name has come up with the Chilean job that I don't think is actually officially open yet. Their manager will be going to Colombia, it appears, but it hasn't gotten done yet. Colombia is going to have to pay Chile's federation to buy him out. Looks like $1 million there. Once that's done, then Chile can go hire somebody. That holdup might be helping Atlanta out because it might mean that Heinze didn't want to sit and wait. It does sound like Chile, at a minimum, reached out and tried to contact him. So, did any conversations actually happen? I don't know. Maybe that was the 5% that Merlo talked about the other night. So, stay tuned there. Sam Williamson asked, how many years was Frank de Boer's contract? And I don't know. I don't know what that was. I know Tata Martino's was for 2, and there was an option. I think it was a mutual option because they discussed a new deal. It might have just been a 2-year deal. They might have had a certain window of time to discuss a new deal. Frank de Boer's, I don't know. I don't remember. I'm sure that might have been reported at the time. I don't think it would have been more than 3. 2 seems right, but I'm not 100% certain of that. So if anybody finds that, please let me know. I think 2 makes sense here. And I know that's going to be a topic. I know that's going to be something that people are going to get worked up about. I totally understand it. But it's just part of the business. It's just part of the situation at this point. And I think it's the thing that makes the most sense for both sides here. I really, truly do. Okay, let's see what else we got. Chris Ashley, fine by me. Give me Heinze for a few seasons, then roll Bielsa in here. That'd be crazy. I don't know. You might need to go in a different direction after that, but we'll see. We'll see. A couple of other things, and I know a bunch of you have read Gustavo's Twitter thread. I've reiterated a lot of this as well, but I think it's important for anybody who maybe is a little bit new to really looking at what Gabriel Heinze could do in Atlanta after this report tonight. He will not have an issue with playing young players. He's done a very good job of developing young players, leaving the player better when he moves on than they were when he got there, which is very good to see. He had to do that at Argentinos. He had to do that at Vélez. That was part of the gig. It's going to be a little interesting to see what he does with more established guys. Now, I think Heinze comes in and has instant respect from the team. And I don't know why that wasn't the case with Frank de Boer. I'm guessing it had to do with his previous 2 stops before coming to Atlanta. I would think that he would have immediate respect from this roster. The thing that can change that is how then training sessions go and how relationships build. But I think he'll have the benefit of the doubt when he walks in. And by all accounts, his training sessions are very thorough, very meticulous, very clear in defining why he is doing what he is doing. When you read stories about Bielsa's training sessions, and look, there's a lot more on that than Heinze because Bielsa's been doing it a lot longer. Players are often kind of blown away by the attention to detail. And the good thing is, and I think this is a very important thing in the game now going forward, maybe back in the day, you could just tell players, do this, and they didn't ask why. Now they want to know why. They want to know why they're doing a certain activity. They want to know why there's repetition of a certain movement over and over and over again. And there's going to be a lot of that. They want to know why they're working on certain aspects. That will be explained to them. That will be very clear. And that feels like it maybe was a disconnect in the previous group with Frank de Boer. It should not be a disconnect if it's Gabriel Heinze. I believe he will be very demanding, but very clear in what he is demanding and why he is demanding it. And that can be a good thing. Let's see. Turner. Yeah, you would have killed me with this one because I would not have known that. So the question that Turner would have sent to us on 92.9, until Adam Duvall hit a solo home run on July 25th, this person was the last person to score a point/run/goal for an Atlanta sports team. Actually, I would have known that. Vince Carter for the Hawks. Because he hit the last shot in the Hawks game. That was before us. I was listening to it from the Estadio Azteca 9 months ago tonight. And Atlanta United had not scored since. So there you go. It would have been Vince Carter. I would have got that right, Turner. I did get there was a similar question. I think it was who scored the last points for the Hawks before the restart. So it was the same idea. I did get that one. I jumped in ahead of Andy. Monteflo says, what terrible name does the MLS's back tournament take next year? MLS has returned tournament. The revenge of the MLS's back tournament. The MLS is back tournament strikes back. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see where this goes. Let's see what we have here. Monteflo, good point. Remedi could be the biggest winner or loser next year. I do agree with that. I think a guy like Heinze might see Remedi differently than somebody like Frank de Boer did. And I think it has to be said, Eric Remedi's form last year and this year was not where it was in 2018. Far more inconsistent. I don't think he lost time with the team because of any other reason other than his form last season. I don't think there was anything else to it. Other people were beating him out. Other people were performing better. He had a horrendous giveaway in Chicago. And you go back and you start tallying up points. That game could have been very different if that doesn't happen. So his form has to be better regardless. But this might be a bit of an open door for him that wouldn't have been there before. He has experience playing in, I think what he would be asked to play, because I would think that he would be the 6 in this kind of scenario, and he might get first crack at it. And if he gets on with Heinze and they get on the same page here, it could work. The biggest concern for me in that is I think Remedi does a very good job of progressing the ball forward, a lot of times on the dribble. He's a better dribbler than he gets credit for. But how strong is he with that long diagonal? That is a major factor of Gabriel Heinze's style of play. He wants to stretch the field wide as you possibly can. You're going to need somebody who can hit that ball from the middle, from the 6, to the right wing, to the left wing. Is that Eric Remedi? I'm not 100% convinced of that. I think Remedi might fit it more as an 8, but then you're competing directly with Heinemann, Moreno, Rossetto, unless Heinemann or Rossetto could sit deeper. Now, this is the other thing about this kind of system. I think we get hung up on the defensive side of it. Heinze's teams have a lot of possession. You need somebody who is good on the ball. You're not asking somebody to be Roy Keane-like, Gennaro Gattuso-like, very defensive. You're asking somebody to be a deep-lying playmaker in some ways. You need a good passer there. Could Rossetto do that? He did play deeper at times in Brazil. Could Emerson Heinemann do that? He played deeper at times in Scotland. It'd be an interesting look, and it could be something that is considered. Don't know if it will be. Don't know if that just means you're going to go out into the market and get somebody instead. That 6, I think, is the key position here. I think that can make or break this team in 2021. If you have the 6 that fits what Gabriel Heinze wants to do, of course, assuming he is hired, then this team could really, really go places. Really, really go places. Because I feel like the rest of the group is a really good fit. I really do. I think it's a good fit. I think you have a guy in Jürgen Damm who is maybe not quite the prototype for Heinze, but I think he's pretty close. He likes to stretch the field, and he can get in behind. You have a player like Josef Martinez that Gabriel Heinze's never had. He's never had a true number 9 that can score goals like Josef. Never in any of his teams. So, we've talked about it, the goal-scoring record of Heinze's teams, and I think this is something you got to keep in mind. You can be offensive, you can be progressive, you can be fun and exciting without scoring 5 goals a game. You can be that because you're playing at a fast tempo. You can be that because you're pressing. You can be that for a lot of reasons. His third-place team last year in the Argentine First Division scored 27 goals in 23 games. They were not defensive by any stretch. They only conceded 14. They were very good defensively, but they were not a defensive team, if that makes sense. The 6th-place team the year before scored 34 goals in 25 matches. Not a huge run. 25 goals conceded in 25 matches. Again, very good defensively. His time when he took over in the second half of the 2017-18 season at Vélez, they played 15 matches, scored 22 goals, conceded 19. You see, the defense got better every chunk that he was at Vélez. The attack, up and down. Argentinos Juniors, and again, this was a team that was very, very good for the second division. They won the league in the second division. They played 44 matches, scored 61 goals. Not bad. They conceded 24 in 44 matches. That's incredible. His teams will be very hard to beat, but they will not be defensive. Don't get hung up on score lines. Get hung up by the flow. Get hung up on the way the game plays out. Get hung up on the mentality. The score line doesn't define your enjoyment. It shouldn't. You want to win. Number one, win. Flat out win games. Most important thing. Yes, you want a whole bunch of goals if you can. You can't guarantee goals. You can guarantee the way you play. And he is going to play a style that can promote goal scoring. He's going to play a style that will promote excitement. He's going to play a style that promotes speed and fluidity. And these are things that we've seen Atlanta United do well with in the past. And I think we've seen the fans respond to it. I think with Josef Martinez, some of the goal-scoring issues that Heinze's teams have had in the past can be fixed. because I think the types of chances that they can create, Joseph is a player who can find the back of the net with them. Okay, Mataflo on Preciado from Independiente del Valle. He wouldn't fit here. I totally agree. Brooks Lennon is already that kind of player. But Preciado is a player to keep an eye on down the road. And moving from Independiente del Valle to Boca, it just reinforces the idea that while a lot of times MLS teams are looking in Argentina, they need to start looking in Ecuador. There's some really good value there, and Independiente del Valle is at the forefront of it in developing players. Bernd Dershberger telling everybody to check out Carrascal from River. Crazy good on the ball. I'll have to dig deeper into him, Bernd. Good shout. Mataflo's a big fan. Hamas 2014 swagger. Oof. Chris Ashley's already trying to predict the Darren Eales cryptic tweet. I'm not going to share it. If you want to be surprised, you want to be surprised. Now I'm waiting to see what that can end up being. Winterwind with a question for me. Do you think his training sessions will be in a style the players will accept, like they talked about with Tata via Frank de Boer, or versus Frank de Boer? Now, they will be different than both. You know, most of the descriptions of Tata Martino's training sessions, intense, and some of the things that you hear about Heinze's, they don't share that. In some ways, he shares more of Frank's demanding nature in training sessions. Now, we weren't there, so I don't know. I don't know if things, broke down in the relationship. I don't know if Frank wasn't clear enough with his instructions. I don't know if the players just didn't give him a chance. I don't know those things, and I don't know if we'll ever really get those answers, to be perfectly honest. But these will not be the Tata Martino kind of training sessions. Think back to a couple of things that Frank said about he had to adjust to the day before session. That's more of a fun session, right? Think to what you've heard about Bielsa's training sessions. Murder ball is one that comes up. I didn't hear anything about murder ball happening at Atlanta United training sessions. I don't know if Heinze's sessions are to that degree, but they will be very different. They need to be accepted. Like that's the thing that I don't know why it didn't happen with Frank de Boer. There doesn't need to be a mind made up before Gabriel Heinze arrives. There should not have been with Frank de Boer. And some of the things you hear about that are honestly pretty disappointing. I don't know if he was ever really given a chance by the roster, and I don't know why. It didn't happen, and that's a shame because I don't know what it could have been. But going forward, that can't happen again. There has to be buy-in day one, and I don't think that'll be an issue here. I really don't, because of so much of the shared heritage, because of the link to Tata Martino here with Gabriel Heinze. I think there will be acceptance. I think a player like Franco Escobar could have a relationship with Gabriel Heinze. I'm not 100% sure of that, but they were both at Newell's. Franco was starting to get closer to the first team when Gabriel Heinze was there. I don't know if they would have interacted at that time, if they would know each other. I'm sure Franco knows of Gabriel Heinze, duh. What I'm saying is I don't know if they know each other, if they have common people in mind, or if they actually are friendly or acquaintances. But I think having somebody like him to maybe Escobar to kind of help explain the mentality a little bit, rally the troops a little bit, becomes really important. I think Franco Escobar could be very, very important with this group going forward if Gabriel Heinze is the manager. Sam Williamson says, will he unlock Barco? I agree with you, Graham. Health is the biggest thing there. I don't think Barco's been locked, really. I think it's just been staying healthy is the number one element here. I think Barco fits into the system. Now, I could see where there might be some questions about that. But Barco will put in the work to defend. Barco will work very hard. We've seen Barco defend. We've seen him get stuck into tackles. He will put in that work. Now, the thing that I'm looking forward to seeing, like I said earlier about stretching the field, Barco's not a player as a winger who really sits on the touchline and stays there and waits for the play to come to him. He'll come inside. He'll get on the ball. He'll drift inside. They've got to make sure those rotations are key with Barco and with Bello, because if Barco comes inside, then Bello has to stretch the field and stay wide. And I think that can work. And I think on the opposite side, it might be a little bit different. We know Jurgen Damm is fine with stretching the field, and it gives him some space to get in behind. He can start from a wide position, come in behind. Maybe that opens up some possibilities for Brooks Lennon, if he's the right back, if it's Escobar's the right back, to come inside a little bit and make it even more difficult for the opposition to figure that out. It might look different on each side. It's still going to be stretched. It just might be the outside back on one side. It might be the winger on the other. Barco will be fine. Barco just needs to be healthy. That's the number one element. Winter Wind says, Remedi seemed to never fully make it back from that bad concussion to where he was in 18. That was early in 19. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's just a coincidence or not. You might be right timing-wise. Just 2019 in general, his form fell off. Even, I think, once he was back playing for a while after that, it kept deteriorating. I don't know if it would have had anything to do with it, but if he's going to play in the system, he's going to have to be better. He's going to have to be better on the ball. He can't have some of the turnovers that he's had in the last couple of years. That's been the number one growing element to his game. That's been a huge issue, is the turnovers. Tesco says, I'm here for Heinze versus Almeida. That will be pretty wild. And I think one of the biggest questions that I have about Gabriel Heinze is Bielsa doesn't compromise his way of playing. They're going to play the way that they play. They don't care if they're playing Real Madrid or if they're playing a fourth division team in the Cup. They don't care. They're going to play the way that they play. They don't care if they have a bunch of new faces in the team. They're going to play the way that they play. Tata Martino, Jorge Sampaoli, other Bielsistas, Bielsa followers, a little more pragmatic. They'll get defensive, like we saw in the postseason in 2018. They'll get a little more direct. Okay? Heinze so far, and it's, again, 3.5 years. I think that has to be understood. Some of the expectations are setting up for him to come in like a manager who's won all the trophies and can come in and day one, this team can be the best team it can possibly be. That's not fair to Gabriel Heinze. And it's coming from people who are happy about the hire and happy about the excitement with it. I get that. The expectations need to be reasonable. Tata Martino in 2017 started well. Team kind of lost its focus a little bit in the middle. Finished well. Finished fourth in the East that year. Great playoff game. Couldn't find a goal. You get knocked out on penalties. That can happen to anybody. Year 2, you had a bad first game. I don't care. You were as good as the previous year's Supporters' Shield winner. Just happened to have another team be a little bit better than you, and you had a chance to win it on the final day, and you didn't take advantage of it. And then you made changes in the postseason to win that trophy. Will Heinze make changes? Because by the end of the 2018 season, the team was different than it was at the beginning of the 2017 season. Tata Martino adjusted to what MLS is. Will Gabriel Heinze adjust to what MLS is? Matias Almeida is a similar Bielsa kind of guy. Has he adjusted to what MLS is? I don't really think his teams have played any differently. Now, there's a talent issue in comparison. Yes, that hurts San Jose. But I don't think style of play, I don't think they've become more defensive. I don't think they've become more pragmatic. I don't think anything's changed. So, will Gabriel Heinze be willing to adapt to the league that he is going to be playing in now? Or will he expect, because of the talent he has on his roster and his style of play, that they will be able to win playing the way that they play? I think that will definitely be the idea at the beginning. Will there be some adjustments based off the travel, based off potential schedule compression, based off the climate here in different parts of the country, things like that? Will there be that adjustment that most managers have had to go through in this league? That's the part we just don't know, because we've never seen Gabriel Heinze in this situation. So them facing off, it will be two mirror images of one another in a lot of ways. And both teams want a lot of the ball. Both teams fight like hell to win it back when they lose it. And it will be a very frantic match. It'll be a fun match if we get to see that next year. D. Graham says, technically, if you play midfielder, you should be able to cover box to box. That's just not how it works anymore, though, D. Graham, not with 3 midfielders. Back in the old days of 2 central midfielders, yeah, I mean, most of them were box to box. It's different now. The roles and responsibilities are different. So I wouldn't even say technically that's true. If you're a 10, you're not really asked to do that. And that's why in Argentina, with the land of the 10s, I mean, the 10 is everything in Argentina. And this is the country that Gabriel Heinze grew up in, by the way. So, I mean, he can't appreciate a 10. But the way they would play for years and years and years, and there's still teams who do it, it's a 4-3-1-2. Everybody would call it a 4-4-2. I understand, but it's a 4-3-1-2. It's three guys who are box to box. Now you're starting to see one of them sit even deeper a little bit to create more of a diamond effect. Sitting behind one number 10 who's free. He's a free roll. He can do whatever he needs to do. He can go wherever he wants. Think Riquelme. Think Maradona. And then two forwards. It's hard to do that now. It's hard to play that way now because systems have changed. Players have changed. I don't think you're asking here the 6 to go box to box as much. The 6 is going to go as deep defensively as they have to. They'll split the center backs in possession when they're building up. When you're in the attacking phase, the 6 generally will stay behind the front 5 players. Or honestly, in the case of the way Heinze's teams attack, the front 7 players. Because the 2 center backs will stay, the 6 will sit in front of them. You got to stay connected. So, I mean, could they make a run? Sure, they're going to make sure they have cover unless you're chasing a game. You're not asking them to be box to box unless that's their role. You have other roles now that kind of change it. Winterwind asks if Heinze's 6 is more of a segundo volante. You're getting really fancy here, Winter. I don't think so. I don't look at it that way. From what I've seen, and it's a lot of highlights, it's a little bit of game action. He's had differing kinds of 6s. I mean, Gago is the one that I think of with Vélez. I think that's what he wanted with that group, which would be far more of a deep-lying playmaker kind of role because they expected to dominate possession. I don't think you're looking for a flyer there so much. I don't think you're looking for somebody to cover the ground. I think you're looking for, are you looking for somebody to be a second playmaker? Kind of. But it's more of the start of the attacks. It's not the finishing ball. It's more of the move it to the more dangerous spot. It's I'm trying to think of the best description. Would like Andrea Pirlo have worked? At his peak, yeah, I think he could have. Once he lost his legs, he couldn't. Gago is a good one. I mean, you look at MLS, guys who could play that role. Man, if Jeff Larentowicz was a few years younger, I think he'd actually be a really good fit for it because, I mean, Tata loved him in that role. I think he'd be a great ideal position for it because he can defend. He can hit the long ball. He's a good passer. That's the kind of player you're looking for here. So, yes, you're looking for somebody who's good on the ball, which shares some of the traits of a segundo volante, but you're looking for a little bit different. It's not a true second. It's just a little bit different setup. Mataflo said, I just asked Gustavo about Heinze and his progress with Almada. Thiago Almada, really young, exciting player. He's one who's progressed. I mean, I don't know if Gustavo studied Vélez from when Heinze got there, and Almada would have been, 16? Because he's 19 now. He's definitely in a better position now. Some of that is just the age. Okay. More questions. Keep throwing them at me. Like I said, Jarrett Smith might be chiming in at some point. He might not. We know how Jarrett just comes in off the top rope sometimes. Shiva says, we saw Miles' development under Frank de Boer. Who will be a player that you think will develop under Heinze? Develop, and that would be somebody who is coming from a lesser position. Will be in a stronger one, not just somebody who's good and will benefit. Like Marcelino Moreno, I think is a really good fit for Gabriel Heinze's system, but he is developed. He's very, very good already. Dom is good. Joseph is good. Somebody who will take a jump. George Bello absolutely can. Franco Escobar can take a bigger jump, especially if he moves to center back full time. The more I think about it, the more I think of Mateus Rossetto could. I think he has a lot of the characteristics that Heinze would like. I think his ability, I think he can hit that long ball. I think he could be a 6 in this kind of system. I think Hosetu could be the one that surprises a lot of people. But I will go with Bello. I will go with Hosetu. I will go with Escobar, Brooks Lennon potentially. And do I want to go with a wild card here? You know what? I will. I'll go with a player like Tyler Wolff. Because what I've seen of Tyler Wolff, and it's limited, a little bit of academy time, a game with the twos, a preseason game with the twos, what we saw in MLS. He is quick. He reads the game really well. I think he'll be good in a counter-pressing system. I think Wolff could take a jump. I think he's the kind of player that will get some time and keep getting more time. I do. I think Tyler Wolff could be one of the bigger surprises. Monteflo says Campbell, defensive connection. Galaxy brain choice, Caleb Wiley. He could. I think he's not going to move up until Bello moves on, and maybe it's both, depending on the time frame here. Maybe. I kind of wanted to say Efrain Morales, too. I think the training time will really benefit him. Campbell might need to be loaned just to play, for sure. Byrne says Escobar could become so good he goes to Europe. I agree with that. I'm going to go Wolff. I'm going to go completely off the board from the rest of y'all and go Wolff. D. Graham has said, how have we not developed a right back? We have had 4 left backs develop, yet right back has been signings only. It just happens sometimes. You look at just, would somebody have moved up and played? I'm trying to think of who came through at right back in the academy. You're only 4 years into the academy. I think at times people expect that to produce players really quickly. It takes a generation, honestly, because the group that's coming through now that started at 10, 11, 12 with the academy, they didn't develop habits that you do at other clubs. They grew up in a professional environment. That's different. The expectations are different. The concepts are different. The goals are different. You're trying to become a professional player. You're not trying to just win tournaments or win league games or go to college. See, Gwen agrees. She knows how this goes. But it's the young guys coming through now that you're going to really start to see the development. So I don't know the probably U15, U16 group, if there's a right back coming. Natnail McDonald was one who came through who I liked. Wasn't MLS level player, I don't think. Other right backs have there been from the academy? Jordan Matthews, some right back. I think he's a little bit of a late bloomer. I think he would have been one that if he had been able to join a professional academy at 12, maybe would be on a homegrown deal. He went to South Carolina. I'll be curious to see what happens with him. He could be a player to watch. He was one who really came on quickly when he started to get some time in USL, but I think it was just coming from a deeper position of quality. So keep an eye on him, but I think it's just time more than anything, D. Graham. I really do. You can't rush development, and when you're relying on bringing in players who have primarily developed at other clubs, you've got to not reprogram in a negative way, but you've also almost got to re-educate. That's why continuity in the academy is so important. It really is. Monteflo says Gurr could be an exception. They would have come through the twos, absolutely. You need those too. He's a little bit older, but man, it feels like you really hit on one. I would not be surprised if he plays on Wednesday with Brooks Lennon out. Would not be surprised at all to see Jack Gurr. He was wildly exceeding my expectations in USL this year. And I knew him. I had seen him with Georgia Revolution in NPSL. Knew who he was from his time at Georgia Gwinnett. I thought he would be a good piece with the twos. I didn't expect him to be one of the leading chance creators in the USL Championship. And tireless with his work. And he could score goals, too. And he could defend. He's a really good modern right back. So he could have a big audition on Wednesday. And he's had one already in training for this. So I think we'll get a sense of where they see Gurr. He's under contract for the twos next year, so they don't have to rush into a decision. But he could end up being one to bridge the gap a little. I think Brooks Linden is too. I mean, Brooks Linden, you got him pretty young. Brooks Linden was a really good get for this team, getting him where he still has room to develop as well. So you've got time. Jordan Matthews might be the one to keep an eye on, though. Always liked him when he played with the twos from the academy.
As did I.
There you go, Jared. I just kept waiting for you to jump in at some point. You know,
I kept waiting for an opening, but I did. But
man, I've been on a roll. I mean, well, I've only been doing this for like 80 minutes now, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. A lot of stuff.
Well, whose fault is that?
It's not my fault.
It's Cesar Luis Merlo's fault.
A bomba, yes. It's a bomba. It happens.
For teasing us like 30 minutes before the show. And then letting us wait another, God, what was that, like another 20 minutes before he actually put it out there? Damn.
Yeah, he's good at that too. He's been doing that here lately where it's like, hey, I have a bomba, but you need to go to my Instagram to get the full effects of the bomba. That's good social media work. I can't hate on that at all. You ready for this, Jarrett?
No, but yeah.
You're going to like it. I'm going to give it the full treatment. Okay. U.S. Soccer has said that the fourth 2021 CONCACAF Champions League bid will go to the reigning U.S. Open Cup winner. There wasn't a U.S. Open Cup in 2020. Who's got that trophy still?
I would like to take this moment to apologize to absolutely no one.
Atlanta United is going to the 2021 CONCACAF Champions League because they still have the U.S. Open Cup trophy. And thank you, Frank de Boer. How about that? Craziness. Thank you, Pity Martinez.
Thank you, Pity. Thank you, Frank.
Crazy.
Thank you, Gasper, for missing a sitter in like the 93rd minute.
There's that too.
Opara, like, put on a platter for him. If you go back and watch that game in like the 93rd, 94th minute, free kick by Minnesota late in that game. Opara climbs the ladder, heads it perfectly straight down with just enough on it to Gasper, who's right, like inside the 6-yard box, who side foots it off of like the backside of Europa instead of straight into the net. So thanks, Chase Gasper. We owe you one.
Yeah. And look,
I've already seen the backdraft of fire from this from both Atlanta United and non-Atlanta United MLS Twitter. Man, with all of it. I'm never going to I get this year did not go well on the field. I'm never going to apologize for another shot at CONCACAF Champions League, especially if you are going to tell me on one hand that you think this team can improve going into next year with Gabriel Heinze, and then you're going to hand them a shot at Champions League. No, you don't apologize for that. Don't tell me one thing and then tell me the other. No, not at all. Not at all. You just take it. You just take it and run. This is hilarious. It's just so funny. There are questions too. Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic, I will share what he tweeted. He said, it's great for Atlanta United to compete internationally, but starting off with the CONCACAF Champions League, the Scotiabank CONCACAF Champions League, SCCL, starting off with those matches hurt the club's 2019 preseason preparation under then new hire Frank de Boer. I don't know if that's the case, and I'll tell you why I think it's different in 2021. The CONCACAF Champions League is going to have to start at a decent time in the calendar. The MLS season might not. And you're going to have to start training ahead of the CONCACAF Champions League. So you're going to get a little more time to train. Does that mean you're going to be able to take the competition as seriously as you've had in the past? Maybe not. Does that mean the expectations are lower for it? Sure, that's fine. You're going to get more time to train. It's a different conversation. I mean, let's be real. You go into 2021, as we've said about the expectations for Gabriel Heinze if he is hired. 2021, the expectation for me is not supporter shield. It's not to be an unbeatable force in the regular season. It is to grow, and it is to be best at the end of the season. That's what happened in 2019. They were playing their best at the end of the year, right? So you need to do that here. Does that mean that you're going to punt on CONCACAF Champions League? No, I don't think so. But does that mean you're going to put pressure on it? Maybe like you did in 19 a little bit. I don't think you do. I don't think you stress about it. I think you field as good of a team as you can and you try to win those games. But you're not going to sacrifice anything later because of it. And I don't think that happened in 2019, to be honest. So I think you can find it as a very good benefit here and an opportunity. And it might allow you to play games and train before any other teams in MLS do that aren't qualified for it because we don't know when the season's going to start.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not making any apologies about this. And I've seen everybody and their mother already talk about it's a misstep by U.S. Soccer. It should go. I think Twellman mentioned it should go to Kansas City. I've seen other people mention it go elsewhere. I get it. I'm like, here's the thing. If you would have told me they gave it to the whatever team lost in the semifinal that had the highest point total, whether that was Minnesota or whether that was who the hell did they just beat? Oh, New England. If you'd have told me they gave it to them, I'd have been okay, cool, that's fine. They chose.
I'm with it. I'm hip.
Given what they chose to do, I'm certainly not going to apologize for it. And I'm not necessarily going to feel bad about it. I mean, Atlanta wasn't about it on the field in 2020, man. But if you think about a team that you're thinking about, okay, a team that can reload going into 2021. This is the one you're looking at, and you might get an earlier look at things than you might have expected. It might be against a Mataglia. It might be against a Saprissa. You don't really know, but you might get an earlier look at what this team looks like than you expected to, given everything that's about to transpire. I mean, hell, we're about to kick back up Wednesday night with Champions League. They still have multiple rounds left. And then they have the Club World Cup.
Yeah.
God only knows what the schedule is going to look like going into the 2021 CONCACAF Champions League.
Who knows? This is madness. A little bit of a crazy night. So let's try to recap for anybody who's joining us late because this has been something. So you have a bomba de Cesar Luis Merlo that Gabriel Heinze will be the new manager of Atlanta United. I think generally people are excited about this, as they should be. I think the positivity is good. There will be questions, just like there would have been about anybody, and they're fair. But I think the excitement is good, and I'm happy to see it. There is a report from Brian Strauss, Sports Illustrated, that U.S. Soccer will be awarding a CONCACAF Champions League spot to the reigning U.S. Open Cup holder, which is Atlanta United, because you didn't have a 2020 edition. And are you supposed to feel bad about it? No, that's what they decided. It is what the Open Cup has had a spot. You didn't have an Open Cup. This was kind of a joke. I didn't think they'd go this way. I truly didn't. I thought they would find another way. I thought it'd be, regular season's even hard to do this year because the regular season's in no way close to being balanced. So I thought maybe it would be finalists from the playoffs, whatever, something like that. Use it as a tournament. I don't know. Even the runner-up of MLS is back if you wanted to go there. I'm sure there's probably complaining out of Central Florida about this. They'll find something to complain about. Don't feel bad about it. And I don't think it hurts your preseason. I totally don't. I think you have to prepare for it, and now you've been through it twice to where you know how to prepare for it. Look at the differences between 19 and 20 for me. 19, Frank de Boer came in preseason. You didn't play any preseason games in front of a crowd. You might not be able to do that here, but a little bit different scenario. You played, 2019, a couple of games behind closed doors.
You played Tijuana's like U23s and reserves. I think that's about it. I mean, it was only like 3 or 4 scrimmage/matches going into Herediano. What was it last year? You played in Birmingham in front of people. You went to Guadalajara to play Leones Negros. You played Elfsborg. You played MLS teams in Bradenton. You played games ahead of Motagua. And not just scrimmages in a park in Florida, but you played matches that teams were motivated for. You were pushed.
Also, if all this is true, and caveat, if all this is true,
of course,
you're handing the reins of this team in a major tournament to a guy who just who has experience like in South America, where they have some blood sport caliber tournaments.
Yeah, I think we need to be a little realistic here.
I mean, at least, but I'm not saying I expect him to go in and win. I'm saying
just not a lot of time in those tournaments.
No,
his time playing in those tournaments in Argentina, he played in the Libertadores in 14 at the end of his career. He got to the semifinal with Newell's. I don't think he had played in the Libertadores before that because he was at Newell's very young. So no, but he played in Champions League in Europe. So I mean, as a player, yes. Limited experience as a manager in these tournaments, a little bit. He's got it. But the mentality that it takes in it, maybe not a direct bit of experience from something like it, but just that mentality, that's what this team will have straight away.
There's a level of empathy that can cross over to it.
Yeah.
To be able to go manager to player to say, I've been in, you're as you going into this as a player, I understand that feeling. Here's how you can work with that.
Yeah. He'll be able to handle the pressure. And again, I don't think anybody should go into the CONCACAF Champions League in 21 with the expectation to win it. You want to make the most of the gift that you were given, and it's a gift. Totally a gift. And people can be mad, and they will. And people will use it to hold it against Atlanta United, and they will, and that's fine. But if you gave it to the runner-up of the MLS's back tournament, other people would be mad. If you gave it to somebody else, they'd be mad. People are like, oh, they had a bad regular season. Last time I checked, DC United made it. Now, they won the Open Cup in 2013, but they were in the CONCACAF Champions League in 14, and they won 3 regular season games. They won more games in the Open Cup than they did in the MLS season that year. But they qualified. They won the Open Cup. It's not Atlanta United's fault that they couldn't have an Open Cup this year. You just take it and run, and you make the best of it. If you treat it as additional preseason, well, then that's what you do. That's fine. I mean, you're not going to go in, and I don't think Gabriel Heinze's teams in general are going to go into any match, whether it's preseason, whether it's a scrimmage, whether it's CONCACAF, whether it's Open Cup, whether it's who knows what, with the expectation of not playing to win the match. That's not how he's wired. So, do you have to rotate more? Do you have to figure things out a little bit? Sure. Are you going to be as good as you will be in the summer? No. But you're not going to say no. And I don't think it affects the preparation at all because there's not any pressure on it. That's the difference to me, Jarrett, is that 2019, there was pressure because it was time number 1. 2020, there was pressure because you came in with a good squad. Now, it changed when Joseph got hurt, but there was pressure because you had expectations of being able to make a run because you'd been there and done that. This time, with a new manager, coming off the year that you had, I don't think there's any pressure. I don't think there's any expectation for results in CONCACAF in 21. It's extra games. Take them.
That's about how I feel with it. Like I said, I'm not going to apologize to anyone over that. I'm not going to also not going to begrudge anyone if they feel salty or mad about it. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong for feeling that way. I'm just not going to apologize for it. Because
some people are being a little wrong, but that's okay.
I mean, like I said, but if you gave it to Orlando, if you gave it to Minnesota or to New England, I'd understand the rationale just with U.S. soccer because it is such a unique situation. Any of those rationales I could have understand. I don't know that I'd had a problem with any of them. So I can understand why any of them would feel kind of like, well, what the hell? Why couldn't we do A, B, or C? They didn't. I get your frustration. Sorry. I'm not going to – I'm going to take these games and run with it, and I'm going to play with house money is what I'm going to do.
100%. 100%. Captain Ragamuffin says if the Revs were the holders, they wouldn't have done this. I don't know. There's not an answer to what they should have done because one of the qualification routes wasn't open. I mean, what were the realistic things that they could do? Let's see what they could have done instead. So instead of giving it to the Open Cup winner because they couldn't, then the MLS Cup winner will get a spot. The Supporters Shield winner gets a spot. The MLS's back winner gets a spot. It could have been the loser of MLS Cup, which would have been Columbus or Seattle. Okay. It could have been the MLS's back loser, which would have been Orlando. Okay. The best team in the Western Conference regular season, which is what it would have been, Sporting Kansas City. MLS's back then took that spot. Okay. None of them are the normal situations here. Sporting Kansas City has the biggest gripe, in my opinion. They're the ones that I'll listen to because they would have had a spot if you didn't have MLS's back, and that spot was taken. The Open Cup spot is a U.S. soccer spot. It's not an MLS spot. Now, they have to be in alignment how they do these, but U.S. soccer was in control of that.
How do you treat like a Toronto or somebody?
Well, no, they qualify through Canada. That's it. I think they had some kind of special dispensation if Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver had won the MLS's back tournament.
Vancouver.
I know, but they're Canadian. I have to mention them.
I know.
Hi, Vancouver. Hi, Couch Ultras. But if one of them had won, then they would have taken one of these spots. And I think MLS was prepared and U.S. Soccer had signed off on it to say, okay, then we'll have 3 spots from this country at that point. So U.S. Soccer spot, they had the control over it, I'm assuming. I'd love to hear the conversation. But they weren't just going to give it to something else. I don't know. MLS couldn't just say it needs to go somewhere else. I think people are yelling at MLS. It's not MLS here. Brian Strauss said it. Yeah. U.S. Soccer says that the 4th spot goes to Atlanta United as the still reigning Open Cup winner. And there you go.
And to an extent, I don't necessarily know if Ragamuffin's wrong. That you're by rolling it back to the 2019 champion, you're giving it to Atlanta. You can roll that back in a way that it makes sense, but you're also giving it to one of your biggest clubs that has an incredibly large supporter base that is going to draw attention. It's going to draw viewership. And I mean, it feels like it, when you kind of look at it from the business side of things, it's not that hard of a choice compared to what some of your other choices might have been. Maybe if you're going by on the field performance in 2020, yeah, there are other ways you probably would have gone. But if you're looking at it from a business perspective of U.S. Soccer, you want your big clubs in these tournaments.
Yep.
And I mean, that's what Atlanta is, which is one of the reasons it was so, such a gravity shift this year when they did have a bad year, because they're expected to be at the top getting into this without, needing the 2019 Cup rollover to get them there. So, I mean, whether or not, you want to pop black helicopters up in the sky for this or not, I can't tell you what to do. All I can tell you to do is just ask you gently and nicely to just enjoy it, because you got MLS Cup tomorrow, and then you have CONCACAF Champions League resuming next week at the same time that you have other tournaments that are, trying to knock each other's heads off.
I'm assuming that now people are starting to see the Cesar Luis Merlo bomba from earlier. Andrew Wiebe tweeted this out a few minutes ago. So I was wondering where that conversation was going to start coming from in this country outside of us. So it's going to get interesting during MLS Cup now with this looming over all of it, because there will be talk about all of this stuff tomorrow. There'll be a lot of attention on American soccer, and then it continues into CONCACAF. I mean, you've got the Atlanta match on Wednesday. You've got Cruz Azul's manager stepping down before they go into CONCACAF after blowing a 4-0 lead somehow in a semifinal. That's not easy to do. So he's gone, and an assistant, I'm not sure who it is who's going to be taking over that team for now, but then their name comes up in managerial searches, so that could get interesting. But there's a lot going on. That's not even getting into an expansion draft on Tuesday. That's not getting into a half-day trade window. That's not getting into free agency opening up. I mean, it's about to get crazy, y'all. That's all I know. You ready, Jarrett?
No, I'm not. Nobody is. And if they tell
No,
you,
I'm
they're
not.
lying.
I'm ready, man.
I'm ready for, like, I don't know if you've talked about the fact that there won't be a Darlington Nagbe on the field tomorrow night. Like, I'm ready for that. I'm ready to, oh, buddy. You know what? I'm ready for excuses if they lose. That's what I'm ready for.
Yeah, and they're valid.
Oh, no, they are.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not. I'm just ready for them because this is kind of like, man, of all like the professional soccer leagues in this country, you're the only one who is going to go through with a championship game. And not saying you're right or wrong for doing so. Don't get me wrong, but you're the only one that's going through with the championship game, and one of the talisman players ain't going to be in there. But let's see how Columbus looks, because I still wouldn't count out Columbus. Don't get me wrong. And if
no, I wouldn't either. Good call.
Wins that game without him,
we're
going to have to make sure that microphone's turned off on field level.
Yeah, a little bit, because there will be some things said, and they will absolutely be deservedly said if that happens. We'll get into it tomorrow. We'll get into it for our watch along as well, which we're going to start at 8:00 tomorrow night. I think Columbus has to go more defensive here. That's my gut feeling, and get direct, not try to get caught in that midfield in possession with an Aiden Morris, or, I mean, I really truly don't know. I mean, do you really go outside the box and, move a Harrison Offal into a holding midfield spot? Do you move a Hector Jimenez, a Waylon Francis, an outside back into one of those spots, rather than play a homegrown who's in his rookie year, an Aiden Morris or a Sebastian Berhalter there? You don't have a lot of time to work on it, so it's going to have to be a gut feeling from Caleb Porter and how you handle it. That's not even getting into Pedro Santos, which is going to be a huge effect on the offense. It's going to put more pressure on Lucas Zelarayan. It's going to put pressure on the wings trying to pick out Jossie's artist. It will be very, very difficult. That's why I think they have to stretch the game out as long as they can. Try to get Seattle to have to come out and control the play, because, look, how did Seattle hurt Minnesota on Monday night? Direct play, I thought. I think the more direct Seattle got, the more they hurt Minnesota, because Minnesota wanted to get numbers forward. If Columbus sits back, especially for a while, to feel the game out, and says, here, now you have it, you figure it out. And Nicholas Ladero, I don't love that idea. I don't love Jordan Morris potentially carrying the ball forward on the wing, but if I got to pick which way I'm scared of the least, I don't want them finding Raul Ruidiaz over the top. I don't want Morris in space running in behind as I play a high line as I'm trying to control possession with somebody that I don't know if I can trust on the ball in these moments. I'm going to be safe if I'm Caleb Porter. I think he needs to be defensive early on.
It's an interesting idea because, I mean, you're hosting MLS Cup.
Yep.
There is something that comes with, I think, an unspoken expectation of you're hosting the Cup. You need to carry play. You're not on the road in the Cup. It's in your house. Mm-hmm. It's the last game at Mopfrey, potentially. This is your Green Bay Packers at the Dome moment. A positive memory for Atlanta.
Yeah, thanks.
I think there comes with that a certain expectation of you need to carry play. Well, you don't have to. There's nothing on the rule book that says you have to carry play. You have to carry possession. You can sit. And frankly, and yes, I have that same feeling about I don't want to give Raul Ruidiaz a shot, like a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy, on the other end, I don't want this to be, we had a sloppy turnover and we gave Jossie's artist one chance on a long ball.
Yep.
Because I know like the jokes are not as common as they used to be because he deserves them not to be as common because Jesse's Artist is actually a good striker and might be your best striker on the U.S. national team right now. The man is dangerous if you give him a chance. He doesn't need really more than one. I would die laughing if we look up at a game. It's Columbus won 1-0. Seattle had 23 shots with 4 on target, and Columbus had 3 shots with 1 on target, and one of them was Jesse's Artist putting away, an early cross.
Mm-hmm.
If you told me that's how it played out,
you take it.
I don't want to give Jesse's Artist that chance, man. But look, Caleb Porter can make or break some stuff, not just with this game. I think with his legacy, he's already got the cup when he was with Portland in Columbus in that game in 2015. If you go out there and win this cup, especially if you kind of change things up, get a little weird, and you run a masterclass out there and beat Seattle in the last game, potentially the last game at Mopfrey, I mean, that's a hell of a thing to add to a legacy, though.
It is. And maybe only having 1,500 fans in the building helps with that expectation of we've got to carry the play, we've got to entertain, we're the home team. Maybe Caleb Porter's like, look, we'd like to. That's how we play. We'd like to have 55% of the ball, but I can't trust Aiden Morris on the ball in some of these moments. We got to be careful. So, yes, the fans might get a little frustrated. They'll be very happy if we lift a trophy. And that's the number one thing at the end of the day. It's winning the game that's in front of you. I don't think they can play their normal style without Darlington Nagbe and without Pedro Santos. I don't think they can be a team that tries to dominate the possession without those players against a team as good as Seattle. I think they have to sit back and defend deeper. I think they have to be more careful. You've got a number 9 in Jesse's Artist who can get in behind on a long ball, who can win a 1v1 battle. Give him those opportunities early. Extend the game at 0-0 as long as you can. Try to take advantage of your opportunities. Hope that Lucas Zelarayan can have a moment of brilliance and ride it out. Just ride it out. I think that's what you have to do. And it wasn't the intention,
Seattle
I don't think.
Respect.
No, absolutely. Yeah, be physical. Make it difficult for Seattle. Be jerks on the field. I mean, absolutely do that. You had to do that anyway. But I just think the game plan has to change. And you never want that as a manager 48, 72 hours before the game where you've been working on something, you've been building to something, you've prepared the way you've played in the preseason, in the season, in the postseason, and then you have this happen. And you had one training session to do anything. It's the day before the game where you're not going hard anyway. So you got to go with your gut. This is a huge decision for Porter as to who he plays in that position and how he plays. I think he has to be defensive first to give his team the best chance to win the trophy. But we'll get into it a little bit more tomorrow, both right before the game on the watch-along and in the power hour in the morning. Give me your take on hindsight, because we've talked mostly about this Open Cup situation since you joined. What's your thoughts? What's your expectations now that Cesar Luis Merlo is reporting that it's gonna happen and Gabriel Heinze will be managing Atlanta United in 2021?
I mean, excitement. I mean, it's if that's what's going to happen, it's exciting because it is an ambitious move for a young manager who is fiery, who is going to play an attacking style, which isn't. It's not that you haven't had an attacking style before, but I think for a lot of people, going back to something that is a bit more familiar, and I don't know that it's going to be easy to put a finger on that because it is going to be a bit. I think we talked about it last night, the way that possession works potentially in his system versus Frank's system. And I think people respond to that. I think it is one of those things where, and I've screamed this into the heavens, when people say, I want my old Atlanta United back, I always want to know how you define your old Atlanta United, because there have been multiple instances of Atlanta United. Even within seasons, there have been multiple instances. But I think if everything gets clicking right, let's say like it did in late 2019 with Frank, go back and look at some of those game highlights. Mid-late season when Atlanta was rolling right before they went into the playoffs with Frank DeBoer. there are some of those game highlights you watch, and it's beautiful. You can see kind of where it's, what it could be, and it's terrifying to watch. And it's kind of like, some of those moments you have at Tata, where it's terrifying to watch. Now, that's both in 2017, where you're going, we've ripped the throttle out, and we've got, somebody on the hood of the car spitting fuel into the outtake like it's Mad Max. Or, like some of the other Tata teams where it was still terrifying, but it wasn't as wide open. I'm excited to see what happens with it. And my expectations will grow as the year grows. I think we've talked about this. I'm excited to see where it starts, but I'm excited to see what it grows into as well as guys get more comfortable. Now if this is what's going to happen, now we turn our eyes to, the trade window, allocation, your reentry draft, guys coming from all over the world. There will be rumors. Is it potential for a guy like Marcelino Moreno to get bought down to free open designated player spot? Do we see rumors pop up with Ezequiel Barco again? You've seen now Jackson Conway get mentioned. Do guys, you've got kind of a bit of a log there at the striker position. Is he a guy that you're looking at to say, I need you to be my number 2 going into this year? I think, Jason, I know you've seen a lot of Jackson. I think he has the disposition to play for a guy who's going to be intense like that.
Oh, yeah. No, I think he'll blossom under something like that. I think he has under Stephen Glass, who's pretty intense.
Yeah, and I was going to say the same thing for a guy like George Campbell, who is, as I have said before, if y'all haven't watched George Campbell, think of Miles Robinson in terms of physicality, but with less, restraint in terms of trying to 2-foot people if he needs to.
Less niceness.
Yes, he's not as nice. Miles is a super nice guy. He
Yes.
really is. He's very unassuming, very nice guy. Campbell is too, but Campbell also, when he steps on the field, kind of turns into he kind of has that Danny Bateman vibe from The Replacements, where when he steps between the lines, it turns into business and people get hurt.
He just goes blank.
Oh yeah, he just kind of it just kind of gets all fuzzy for him when he gets between the lines until he steps off the field. But I think he can flourish under that as well, especially if it's going to be young players. So my expectations will grow as the season grows along. I'm excited to see what happens with a lot of the young guys. As always, you are handing a manager potentially, when he comes back, 75% Joseph. He'll probably be better than that, just to spite me for saying that.
Yeah.
I just want it's an ACL injury, and I just don't want people to expect him to come back and start popping hat tricks right off the bat.
Here's the one thing about Joseph and the timing. What do they always say about an ACL injury? That it's 12 months before they're back to normal. And a lot of times
it's also
people...
a mental thing.
That too.
As someone who's done knee injuries, there's a matter of trusting your body.
Yep, that's a good point. And that's where it gets a little bit weird because of the timing here. Like, you're going to be about 12 months when he comes back. I mean, that happened February 29th. You'll be if the Champions League schedule is remotely close to what it's been, and that's a question mark. It'll be right at about 12 months, 11 and a half, if he starts that game. But he hasn't played. I think a lot of times when people say that about it's 12 months before you see them look normal again, it's because they're usually back somewhere between 6 and 9, depending on the severity of the knee injury. And they kind of have to play through things a little bit. Like you say, the mental side of it, they have to trust it. I think Joseph will be fine with that. I think his mental strength is ridiculous. But you just need to get some games under you. Some of that time is just getting back to sharpness, recovery. You recovery in a match where you make a sprint and you feel normal again afterwards. Recovery after games, those kinds of things, which will not have happened. So it might be a little bit longer before we see him look more like 2019 Joseph. But it might be earlier in the season than you think because of the time frame we're talking about.
Yeah, and I guess my final thing on Gabriel coming in, I want to know how serious this Chile situation was. because that's going to feed into how cocky I get about this. Because if you find out that Atlanta United got chosen over the Chilean national team job, I need them to come out of the hen house with the chest out, crowing like a damn rooster. I need that. Because in the past, do MLS teams win out over South American national team jobs, even for a 2-year deal? No, they don't.
Mm-mm. Not in the past. Maybe it's a new day. Maybe I'll be interested to see how it's reported.
Money, and I'll get it if it is. I don't care why it happened. But
could be timing.
Could be timing. Could be a lot of things. But I want to know how legitimate that was because I need to know for my own arrogance. Did Atlanta United just beat out the Chilean national team for a manager?
Are you going to start trash talking the whole country of Chile? Is that what you're telling me?
No, actually no. I have never met a Chilean I did not enjoy hanging out with. Either playing baseball with, playing pickup soccer with, being friends with. I have a good relationship with everyone I have ever known from the nation of Chile.
Chile is a good place. I like Chile. I hope they get a manager that they would like to get. It doesn't appear it's going to be Gabriel Heinze. It appears, according to Cesar Luis Merlo, he will be coming to Atlanta. Update on the Open Cup situation from Taylor Twellman. A few minutes ago, he tweeted, apparently this was CONCACAF, not U.S. Soccer, who made this decision, which it's CONCACAF's tournament. So the way it had been reported was that U.S. Soccer had made the decision. And initially, some people were mad at MLS. It was not MLS's decision to make. This was an Open Cup spot. That tournament's run by U.S. Soccer. CONCACAF has to approve how spots are determined. Countries will submit what they want to do. In the past, the Open Cup winner did not get a spot in CONCACAF. That changed in somewhat recent years. And they're keeping it there. There's just not a recent winner. So the holders of that trophy get it, and it's Atlanta United, which was not expected, and people are not happy about it, except for Atlanta fans, which I don't think Atlanta fans really care about, to be perfectly honest. You take it and you run, and you make the best of it.
Sorry.
I just think it's funny. I mean, at this point, I just think it's funny. And there's been some back and forth, and Burns said, hopefully there's a decent amount of roster turnover, so it's going to be messy for us in CONCACAF Champions League. Again, I'm sure preseason friendlies will be tough to organize due to COVID. I'll take the flip side of that, and I do agree. I think preseason friendlies will be tough to organize. You get some games that you really don't have much expectation of that are going to be scheduled. So if you don't
reach out to the other teams that are getting into CONCACAF,
no, I'm not even going down that road. I mean, maybe that might be a possibility, but I'm just saying, at a minimum, if it's hard to get preseason games or it's hard to go away to preseason training camp or whatever, at least you're going to get some games that are going to help you prepare for the MLS season. Again, I don't really. This is a bonus. I mean, you'd love to make a miracle run, and I mean, how crazy would that be? People would really be in their feelings about that if Atlanta United made a deep run in the 21 CONCACAF Champions League when people think they shouldn't even be there in the first place. But I don't think that is the expectation. I don't think that's the goal here. You get a couple of games that are going to be scheduled, that are going to get played, you would expect, in some form or fashion. You take it and run. I think it can help a lot more than it can hurt. Nobody knows what this preseason is going to look like anyway. At a minimum, you've got a couple of games on the books for early in the year. The Players Association wants the start of the MLS season to be later. Okay, if it gets pushed back and CONCACAF is played in late February and you don't have an MLS game set for late March, let's say they push it back a few weeks, which I wouldn't be blown away by. I think that's doable. Okay, you're going to get those games. You're going to get in earlier. You're going to get this training time, and you want training time. And you want opportunities to test out what you learn in training. So it is what it is. I mean, if you're drawn up against, let's say you're drawn up against Real Esteli from Nicaragua, and you could, depending on if it's like the tournament's been structured in the past, you should be able to win that with a B squad.
So that gives you a couple of games to get under your belt and get ready. And you just go for it. You get these games, you get the gift, you take the advantage of it, and I don't think it's a negative. I disagree with the negatives to take of it. I am generally an optimistic person. I think y'all know that by now. You make the best of it. It can't hurt you unless you let it. I think it can only help you. That's my thought on it, but we will see. Joe Boss hanging out tonight. Welcome, Joe. I think you just arrived.
I think we're a pro Marseille podcast now.
We're a pro Marseille podcast.
Marseille. Doug has his article up about the
Marseille.
about the link.
That's funny.
Marseille's tweeting out clips of Heinze just wrecking folks. I mean,
and it's their official English account.
Yes.
I think I know who runs that account, so I am not surprised that they would say something about this. So I think I actually know the person who runs it.
I mean, some of these tackles in the video are just out. Go look this up if you haven't. It's and not just you, anyone in the Twitch pitch listening. Go look this up because these are some amazing tackles. This is like some. This is the man that you if he's going to, in the same way that we always thought, hey, giving Frank DeBoer a guy like Miles Robinson sounds like a really good idea. One of the best defenders in the world during his time, giving him one of the best young raw defenders on the continent. Well, you're going to give him a bunch more young raw defenders and a bunch of young raw players to a guy who played with a knife between his teeth, to take Joseph's line.
Yeah, he has known that knife very, very well in his career. He is not going to be fooled by any fake knives in people's teeth. He will know exactly what the real thing is because that's how he played. I mean, that's why Roy Keane said what he said about him. This is all known. Joe Boss, Ricky Ricardo, just jumping in. You guys have missed a lot. I think you know everything, though. Cesar Luis Merlo is reporting that Gabriel Heinze will be hired, officially signed to a contract early next week. Atlanta United plays CONCACAF next week, and now they will be playing CONCACAF Champions League in 2021 as well. I don't know if we really know what that tournament's going to look like just yet. There are some questions about timelines and everything. Obviously, we're still in a pandemic, and international travel is not exactly easy. That's why CONCACAF has had to modify the tournament that they're doing now. They will be needing to figure out some protocols for future situations with international travel. They've had the CONCACAF League and been able to pretty much complete that, but they've done single-leg competitions. So CONCACAF Champions League for 21, we don't know what it looks like, but we know Atlanta United is going to be in it. It was initially said that U.S. Soccer made that decision. Taylor Twellman has clarified to say that it was CONCACAF who made that decision, not U.S. Soccer. Atlanta gets in as the reigning U.S. Open Cup holders, which that spot, the U.S. Open Cup, earns you a spot in CONCACAF. There wasn't a tournament this year, so instead of giving that spot back or picking somebody else, CONCACAF is saying that the previous holders would have it. And Taylor Twellman is not happy about it. He has tweeted a lot about it. I don't think anybody's happy about it unless you live in Atlanta or have shirts that have red and black stripes on them with a giant A. It's a gift, and you take it, and you run with it, and you make the best of it. There's no expectation on it from me. I don't think there's any expectation from Atlanta United fans on it. It's 2 official games if it is a 2-leg series that are going to be scheduled. They should be against competition that you can handle, unless you get to draw and you get a Mexican team, which can happen in that first round. LAFC had to deal with that with Leon. They did. If you get a Caribbean team, if you get Real Esteli, who has now qualified from Nicaragua, who is not a strong team, if you get a team like that, you should be able to find a way through, even as you're figuring it all out, and you make the most of it. It is what it is. You're trying to get better. Like, I think next season is all about being in a contending spot for MLS Cup next year. It's not about the regular season record outside of qualifying for the postseason. It's not about a run you make in CONCACAF. If you make one, great. And if you're gonna try to keep winning those games. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. It is about being in a position to win MLS Cup. The next year under Gabriel Heinze, year 2, and it sounds like it's going to be a 2-year deal. That's where you want to be in competition to win every trophy you're entered into. Supporter Shield, MLS Cup, Open Cup, all of it. You want to win all of it.
Go back to 2017 and 18. Look at that trajectory. Put it on to 21 and 22. That's what your expectation should be, in my opinion. So we will see. Orlando's mad. Sporting Kansas City's mad. Whoever loses MLS Cup's going to be mad. Sorry? I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, CONCACAF made the decision. For Atlanta, you just take it and run.
Yeah, I got nothing else to add to that. I mean, that's where I'm at. Like, you take it, you run with it. You don't apologize for it. I mean, not really. I mean,
You might laugh. I don't think you apologize.
That, basically. Like, you might laugh
you
at
might
it,
giggle.
and you go make the best of it. I think you reach out to the other teams that are going to be in CONCACAF Champions League after the new year, and you say, hey, let's get together. Let's make sure we're all clear of everything, and then let's see if we want to get together and make sure everybody's nice and loosey-goosey going into the tournament. And then you go play, and you take that for what it's worth.
Yep.
And
it's going to be tough.
House money.
The one reason it's going to be tough to do what you're proposing, Jarrett, is Mexico is set to start their season on like January 9th. So they'll be in season. So it'll be kind of the same situation that you dealt with last year and the year before. The year before, you set up something with Tijuana. You ended up getting their reserves and U23s in 2019. It wasn't a competitive game. It didn't really help you outside of a run out. Last year, you couldn't play Chivas or Atlas or a first division team because they were playing on the weekends. You couldn't get a competitive game with them. But you could with Leones Negros, who is in the second division, but is a big club and a serious club. They would relish the opportunity to take on an MLS team, even to the point that, yeah, they're playing in their league competition and it matters, but they'll do it. You might have to look at something like that. You might have to look at that. I think in this country, you're probably going to, at least at the beginning of training camp, because you're going to need games to work through what Heinze wants in game action. So in the very beginning, it might be, depending on when the USL season is going to start, and that's another unknown, it might be South Georgia Tormenta. It might be Chattanooga Red Wolves. It might be Greenville. It might be Charleston. It might be teams like that are close by that you can work with. And you can play in a scrimmage situation to work through these lessons that you're going to be learning from a new manager in a different style of play. You want to ramp up the closer you get, but look, it's just 2 more games that you have scheduled for you, is the way I look at it. You get at least 2 games that you're going to get scheduled for you if the format's the same. You make the best of it, you run. If you get through it, cool, you get more games. But everything's about building to being an MLS Cup contender at the end of the year, next year. That's the goal. That's the number one goal. Nothing else matters. If you make a bonus run in the Open Cup, great. If you make a bonus run in CONCACAF, great. You take it. But the goal is to be your best at the end of the season to be an MLS Cup contender in 21. I think that's the ultimate goal for the season.
I just want Chris Ashley to cut a promo on us if we have to play the Greenville Triumph in a practice, like in a scrimmage.
He'd probably freak out.
Chris, why did you cut a 45-minute? How did you cut a 45-minute promo?
People are laughing.
How did you not breathe through this entire? My God, how?
He can do it.
I know. That's what's terrifying. Also, I just now realized your board is updated behind you with all the topics of the day. I don't know why I haven't noticed that.
I've been doing that for a while, man.
I know.
It's been happening for a while. I even got Bomba de Merlo. I got that in there when he dropped his Bomba to go check his Instagram.
Yeah, because I sat there on my phone before the show, like refreshing Instagram and Twitter over
and he waited until right after we went live. Like I was like, boom, boom. I was like waiting. I waited like an extra about 120 seconds. Like boom, 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 boom. Now it's good. I'll go ahead and press live. Here we go. Oh, there it is. Thanks, Cesar. He's great at what he does.
He might be shadow listening to the show and just waiting.
Maybe he knew we were doing a show at a weird time tonight, and he's like, "All right, here we go. Let's drop it."
Jason's not live yet.
What's going on?
Okay, there he is. Okay, now I can post it.
Now I can hit send. Thanks, Cesar. Appreciate the timing of everything tonight. It's been fun. If there are any other questions, whether on Twitter or on the Twitch pitch, we'll take them real quick. Not going to go super long. I'd like to eat some dinner. I'm sure Jarrett would like to get some things done as well, but I want
I'm done
to.
for the day.
Okay, well then we're still not going forever.
No, yeah, that's fine. And just this is on you now.
Okay.
In terms of you needing to go live your life.
Yeah, it's not going to go super long. Let's see. Tafka says, I know some are worried about the only 2 years issue. Tafka's response is, it doesn't preclude more years if both club and coach are happy. Check. December 2022 would put a coaching search on the heels of a World Cup, meaning lots of coaches moving on or let go. That's a good setup. Check. Tafka said, I would love if he had at least a working level of comfort, I guess, of English, but I don't foresee it as a problem. Also check. I don't worry about that. So there's nothing to add to what's been said the past few days, but I have a really good feeling about Heinze as a coach. Says that I know that Tafka is not a huge optimist, so thumbs up. That is also very true, Tafka. I do know that, so it's good. A lot of talk about the potential merging of MLS and Liga MX. It sounds like maybe there's a little more concrete conversation about that than we had thought. We can get deeper into that tomorrow. I don't know what it means. I don't know to what degree it's a merger. I don't know if it's domestic competition and international competition, or it's one whole big thing. I don't know what it looks like, but that's a bigger topic. It just sounds like maybe there's a little more juice to it. And you look at what Garth Lagerwey said in Stan Stejkol's conversation with him and Tim Bezpachenko. It sounds a little more real than theory at this point. So I am very curious. It would be a good thing for Atlanta because Atlanta is one of the bigger clubs. It'd be a good thing for the big clubs in Mexico. Would it be good for the second-tier clubs, the third-tier clubs in the first division in the two countries? That I don't know because I don't know what the structure is. I don't know if it's a first division and a second. I don't know if everybody's going into one pot. I don't know if everybody's sharing revenue. Like I don't know those things. So there's no way to say it's bad for them. We just don't know. It would definitely be good for the bigger clubs. I don't think there's any question about that. I think that's about it, to be honest. Ricky Ricardo, last one in the game. Oh, free agents to consider. Sorry, D. Graham. I was going to look that up because I wanted to see if we have a list that's a little more thorough. There's a few that we know about. Ricky, let me get Ricky real quick, D. It may be a dumb question, but can we read anything into a potential future MLS TV deal from the deal the SEC announced yesterday with ESPN? Jarrett, I think the one thing we can read into it is that certain properties will still make money on TV deals even right now if they become available. Is MLS that kind of property? I don't know. But there is money to spend because ESPN is giving the SEC, about 4 to 5 times what CBS was giving them for the package?
Something like that.
But they lumped in the other stuff, too.
obscene
CBS
number,
only had
but-
the one game, to be fair. So, yes, they're giving them a lot more money, but they're also giving them more windows,
Giving
too.
them a lot more money. You're losing Gary Danielson.
I don't want to say hopefully. That's mean. But maybe.
You're probably also losing the CBS. You are losing the CBS theme, which is like the theme song to my fall.
That hurts.
So I am sad about that.
That hurts. But, do you take anything out of it that they're spending money on this and pretty big money, or is that just because it's the SEC, or is it because TV rights are still going to be okay?
I think it's a little bit of a lot of column A and some of column B. I think
Kind of thinking the
because
same way.
there's a matter of elasticity that comes with the SEC. Like you can do a lot of things to SEC coverage, and SEC fans are going to find a way to watch. They're going to pay. You might not say that as strongly about other conferences. The SEC is just without I can't really do this without sounding like an elitist, and I apologize. It really is its own animal. I'm not going to go be generic like it just means more thing, but like as far as consumption goes, it's its own animal.
It just means more, Jared.
I freaking hate it so much, but it is like, and it's its own animal for more teams in the SEC than in other conferences. Clemson fans consume at an absurd rate. Florida State fans, sorry, John, consume at an absurd rate even when they're bad. Like the SEC, I think, has a higher quantity of teams with fan bases like that. So I think that's a lot of column A. But yeah, maybe the rights will be okay. We'll see. I want to see what happens with all the the Fox Sport regional networks, and I know that's opening a can of worms right as we're wrapping up, and we don't have to dive into that. But like, the Hawks are on tonight. I want to see the Hawks playing in their shiny new uniforms, and John Collins hitting shots, and Cam Reddish, being Cam Reddish. I want to see how those rights kind of act going forward, because when everything was going on with Atlanta United at the end of the year, when Fox Sports South is getting dropped left and right, it wasn't so simple. And I didn't know how to explain this. Like, it's not as simple as the club can just stream the game. There are contracts to go over. It's not as clean cut as we want it to be, as we desperately wanted it to be. It just isn't. And you got to figure out how you're going to do content going forward, because you look at the way people consume content. They're not going to be sitting around at a bar paying a cover charge or going and having a drink to watch as much as they might be out and about, pulling it up on their phone, being able to stream it at will. It's a different way people consume, but some stuff like college football, like the NFL, man, that stuff is still going to be that way for another probably couple decades, I would assume.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think MLS should
Sunshine.
Sorry. Stop, Twitter. CBS should be sad because they're losing it. They had opted out of paying it. They were not going to compete with ESPN. ESPN is happy about getting everything SEC related. They'll include ABC into it. I'm very curious to see how much ABC they include beyond the championship game. Do they try to work a lot of things to ABC and take advantage of that? We'll see how this works out. I don't have all the particulars in front of me. MLS should look at it and say, well, those rights fees went up a lot. Now, we're not the SEC, but we deliver X, Y, and Z, and we deliver you all of these hours of content. And if you actually put some effort into normalizing our league on your other platforms, actually talking about the league, talking about it properly, pronouncing things right, those sorts of things, then maybe your ratings go up. If you promote the MLS broadcasts on your other soccer content on ESPN Plus, if you actually put together a highlight show, if you allow us to talk about the league a little bit more, maybe it'll be worth more to you. It's not going to be.
Imagine if you did a Galazzo show.
Yeah.
During.
You put it on ESPN Plus.
MLS's schedule is so broken up throughout the day and throughout the weekend a lot of times.
Saturday nights.
Put a Galazzo show on ESPN on Saturday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern.
Do an 8 o'clock show. You catch the end of the 7 o'clocks and 7:30s. You catch the West Coast games. Do it. You've got the ESPN Plus rights. I'm sure that's an easy addition to make that happen for the next contract. You've got the potential, and you've got a network that is going to spend money because everything is about live sports for them. So MLS should be very happy about it. It's how you capitalize on it and how you convince them to spend. I don't think the rights fees go up 4 to 5 times like they did for the SEC, but I think they'll go up. And I think that was a concern maybe going into this. I do think they'll go up. I think it'll be worthwhile to make it go up. So I'm excited to see it. One afternoon ABC game a week. Thank you, Ricky. They get to put SEC games on ABC Saturday night if they choose to. One dedicated non-conference football game and 2 non-conference basketball games on ESPN Plus. So pretty good deal all the way across the board. And they're paying a lot for it. So everybody should be happy about it. ESPN might not in terms of how much they're spending, but it is a massive driver for them. And is MLS right now? No, it's not. Can it be a bigger driver than it is? Yes, and I hope that they find a way to treat it that way. Free agents. D. Graham would ask about this as we finish up. We'll be back in the morning, 10 o'clock power hour. We will have a noon stoppage time extra at facebook.com/929thegame with myself and Mike Conti. 8 o'clock, we'll be back here just on Twitch for the watch-along for MLS Cup. Sunday, Jarrett and I will be back for the 5th year in a row. 5th year in a row, the 5th annual.
What have we done with our lives?
Lots of bad things, Jarrett. The 5th annual MLS half-day trade window extravaganza will be live at noon. We're not doing the whole 4 hours for you, sorry. We did that one time, and it was a bad idea. We're doing 1 hour plus from noon till at least 1 o'clock when the window closes on Sunday. We'll talk MLS Cup, but we'll talk about any moves that happen on Sunday. And then we're back with a normal week next week. So
Last question is about the free agents. What we heard today was maybe one of the more surprising days of this. Minnesota United, they got a lot of issues to sort through. Osvaldo Alonso, Kevin Molino, Luis Amarilla are the three biggest ones. Amarilla's on loan with a purchase option. They haven't made that decision. He's on loan from Vélez Sarsfield. Will that get done? We don't know. I don't think he's a fit for Atlanta. He's a forward. I don't think it works. Kevin Molino, I don't think is a fit for Atlanta, but he will get a lot of interest in the league if he does not go back to Minnesota. Adrian Heath has said they've offered him as good of a deal as he will find in the United States. Okay, they haven't gotten it done yet. Osvaldo Alonso, not healthy this season. 9 regular season starts. 35. A lot of miles. If it was a couple years ago, be very, very excited about this. I don't know if it's worth the risk. I would need to know that physically he's going to be all right. I don't think you can guarantee that at 35. As a
what
backup,
scares me about a guy at 35 is the older he gets, the sharper that cliff is going to get when he gets there. That's not to say he gets there this year. He might give you another healthy year. But when he does hit that cliff, it's getting more and more sheer.
Sam Williamson says, I want Alonso in Atlanta. I would have a few years ago. I just don't know at 35 and only playing 9 games this year. 9 games this year. I don't need a veteran presence on the bench. If he's going to be okay to start the season next year and he can give me, let's say, between the gifted CONCACAF Champions League, Open Cup, regular season, and if it's expected to be normal with 34 games, and postseason, let's say you play 44 games, just to throw a number out there, okay? If you have Alonso in the team and you're going to go get him in free agency, you need him to play 30 of those 44 across all competitions? Do you think he can do that?
Maybe. Here's the problem. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you when I would take him is if MLS wasn't a capped league. If MLS didn't have a salary cap, hell yeah, I would go get him and I would take that risk right now.
Agree.
And if nothing else, I would say, hey, I want you to. Man, I miss Lawrence White already. I'm really sad because I would love for Lawrence White to learn from a guy like Alonso, and for Mo Adams to learn from a guy like Alonso. But because MLS is a salary cap league, I'm more hesitant to do it.
Yeah, that's going to limit you. I'm going to run through what is posted at MLSsoccer.com real quick. Now, remember, I don't have everything in front of me as to who goes into waivers, who goes into re-entry, and who goes into free agency. Free agency, you have to be older and have been in the league longer. Waivers is the next drop down. You can be in the league less time, or you can be younger. You fall short of either one of the metrics. Waivers is you haven't been in the league very long and you're very young. That's usually how it works. One or the other. Like we've seen some guys go through waivers after year 1 where they had an option. It wasn't picked up after year 1. They can go through the waiver process. So I don't know who falls into what yet. The league announces those generally a day before those drafts, before those processes. Some of them we've heard, some of them we have a good guess. Matt Beasler, for example, will be a free agent. Injury issues are a question there, too. I don't think you're looking at him here, but I would not be surprised to see him sign somewhere in the league. Chicago, out of contract or contract options not exercised. Brant Bronico is a player that I've always liked. I think he can give you cover at a 6 and as a right back. You've got some players in those kinds of positions, so I don't know if you can really squeeze him in. I don't think he has a ceiling of being a top 6 in this league, but I think he's a nice player. I just don't know if you have the space for him. Bronico is one that would grab my attention. Cincinnati, looking at who, there's a lot, and some of them have already gone. Siem de Jong's already back to the Netherlands. I don't think there's anybody from Cincinnati unless you really want to get Greg Garza back as that Edgar Castillo backup to George Bello. Ricky is saying Taylor Twellman might be right or wrong because now AP is saying the U.S. Soccer was the one who made the decision.
That might have been posted a little bit earlier, Ricky, because Taylor updated what he tweeted out. I don't know if we really know truly at this point. I guess Taylor heard something after he had initially tweeted it. Maybe we'll know by the morning. Cincinnati Garza, if you really want the veteran backup at left back, I don't know if it's as critical now. Andrew Gutmann, who is on loan, correct, from your boys, Celtic?
Defeaters of Lille? Yeah, Celtic. Yeah, he is on loan.
Jeez. So you're not even going to worry about that.
That's one where I wouldn't be shocked if Cincinnati reaches out to them about a purchase option.
Yeah, and maybe the option that they had in the initial loan was too high, and they're going to negotiate. Reto Ziegler is out of contract in Dallas. I like Ziegler, but he's older. I don't know if he's really going to help you a whole lot. DC, nobody jumps out to me outside of Chris Aduiachem, but I think his ceiling's kind of low. He'd just be a backup on the right side, and I don't know if you really truly need that. Houston, I have always kind of liked Victor Cabrera when he was with Montreal, but I don't think he's a higher-up person here. Miner Figueroa and Boniek Garcia are both older. I like Nico Hansen. I've always liked him. He was at Columbus first and then Houston. He's a reserve player. He's not going to be a starter in this league, I don't think, but he's a nice player to have off the bench. I think he would fit what Gabriel Heinze is wanting to do as a backup winger. Does he take that Manuel Castro kind of spot as a reserve winger who can kind of come in and give you energy off the bench? Maybe. Nico Hansen might be one to keep an eye on. LAFC, not Dejan Jakovic, not Jordan Harvey, not Mohamed El Munir. Bradley Wright Phillips, he's not going to go anywhere where he's going to be a dedicated backup, I don't think. Andy Nahar had injury issues. He might be close to done, and he'd be cover on the right side anyway, so I don't think there's anybody there. LA Galaxy, Joe Corona might be worth a question mark, but I think he's just another number 8, and you've got a bunch of them already. Miami, I don't know if there's anybody you would want to go get there. It looks like Will Trapp is going to go to Minnesota. Trapp kind of could be a 6 in this sort of system in terms of that possession-based number 6, but it looks like he's going to go to Minnesota, so not going to even get into it.
Can we kidnap Lewis Morgan in the middle of the night?
He's under contract, so no. You're not allowed to do that, Jarrett. I'm sorry. I know.
Anyway.
I know. Bojan is an interesting name. I think he'd be too expensive for you. I want to see if Montreal brings him back. Very interesting.
Jackson Hamel?
Yeah, if you didn't have Jackson Conway, I would say yes, because I've always thought Anthony Jackson Hamel could turn into something more than he is, but you've got Conway and Adam John up top, and Eric Lopez, who can play out wide but also up top. There's just nowhere for him to go. That's the thing, is I think when you talk about overhaul, there's not a lot of room to overhaul. Now, could other guys move? Yes. Could guys who are currently under contract move? Yes, they could. But as it currently stands, when you go into these types of situations, I don't think you're looking for a lot, and there's not going to be like a starting 6 that is out of contract or a free agent or on waivers. You're looking for somebody who can help give you some depth. I think Nico Hansen is the one so far. I don't think there's anybody from Nashville. New England, Diego Fagundes seems like a little bit of a head case. He's very talented. I don't know if he's as good of a fit in the system. Tommy McNamara, I don't think has the pace to really get the most out of the system, but he's another one I really like. Christian Pania.
That's John Gallagher. I stand by John Gallagher is just baby Tommy McNamara.
Kind of. Christian Pania is an interesting one, but I think there's rumors already he's going to go back to Ecuador. Super fast. He had injuries at the end of the year. New York City, Gary Mackay-Steven, Gideon Zalalem, who I think everybody still is really high on, but he just hasn't been able to do anything since his knee injuries. I don't think Mackay-Steven would fit this kind of system. Do you? You know him better than I do.
Not really. He didn't take advantage of his opportunities like he should have. He had a little bit, personal opinion, I think he had a little bit of of Manuel Castro thing going on, where there were times in New York City he would come on and get in the spots and just wouldn't finish. I lost track of how many times I saw things of, oh my God, how did Gary Mackay-Steven mess that up?
Yeah.
Like, he can get in the spots, but he wasn't lethal enough.
I'd agree with that. That's fair. But again, I just don't think you have the spot to really for him to want it either, because he's not going to play. Orlando, nobody there unless you took a flyer on somebody like Josue Colman, who's still young and could turn into more. I don't think he ever got a fair shake in Orlando. You would probably be more or less getting his rights and then loaning him out to see what his next step could be. I just don't know if it's high enough ceiling, and he's a DP right now. That would have to get completely restructured. So you would be getting him. I think he'd go through reentry. You'd have to sign him to a new deal. You'd have to sign him to just a decent number. Philadelphia, Warren Creavalle, if you want a true six, and you want a reserve six, because I think that's where Warren Creavalle is at this point. Local guy, Decatur High School. Warren Creavalle, Trinidad and Tobago International, but he played some really good minutes for Philadelphia this year. He'll be available. I don't hate that idea at all. Warren Creavalle could be very interesting. Does he become the Jeff Larinowitz kind of veteran six that you can break glass when you need him and play him and not worry about it? Maybe so. Portland, no, unless you think Chris Duval would give you depth at outside back on both sides, which he can. Play anywhere on the back line. You can even play a little bit of center back. Another local guy. So maybe you can get him for a lower number if he's going to be a depth piece. That might help coming back home. So keep Chris Duval in mind as a possibility. Nobody from RSL that I think would fit what you need. San Jose.
You mean until I pull off my caper where we somehow get Albert Rusnak and plug him into the system?
Yeah, not happening, Jarrett. He's under contract. He signed a new deal. I'm sorry. As much as I love Vaco, he doesn't really fit, and he'd probably come at a decent little chunk of change from San Jose. Sporting, we mentioned Beasler.
I wonder if someone other than Atlanta takes a look at Danny Hoodison.
I think they should. I really think they should. I think he can be a starter in this league.
For the right team. At the very least, I think a team that does not have like a guy who is, his name is written in obsidian, mined by the dwarves of Middle Earth kind of striker. Yeah, he's got to bring in and say, hey, I need you to compete for this spot.
I think he could be even more than that. I really do. I've always been high on him. Just depends on where he could end up.
Totally fair.
Yeah, I think he's more than that. I do. I'll give you a complete wild card for Sporting Kansas City, a young player that I've liked and has shown flashes, and I bet you could probably get him for a low number and maybe even on a show improve kind of maybe a twos deal. Juan Cusain. How old is he now? He might not even be 20. Central midfielder. Young, came out of their academy.
Would be a show improve like hell, but yeah,
it would, and that's
nothing
fair.
wrong with that,
he's 22. Sorry, he's a little bit older than I thought he was. He played
still a pup.
Yep, 6 times, 3 starts this year. Scored a goal. Very technical. If you get him for not much, I would take a flyer on Juan Cusain. And if you don't have to get him on an MLS deal and you can sign him as a USL player, 150%. I'm all in on signing him to see if I can get a little more out of him than Kansas City did. Toronto, not much. I mean, I know Pablo Piatti turned some heads when his option wasn't exercised. I just don't think he fits, and I think he'd be too expensive. Zavaleta as a reserve center back, if you felt like you needed it. I like Zavaleta. I don't think you necessarily need it. Vancouver, I don't think there's anything there. So a handful. I mean, running through it, 4 or 5 guys that I think you want to keep an eye on. A couple with local ties in Creavalle and Duval.
Kuzane could be an interesting one. Nico Hansen could be an interesting one. But there's not a lot there. I think where Atlanta will be listening more is on the trade side, potentially. I think it'll be on the trade side. And if something opens up, maybe we get surprised in a big way with teams trying to make moves, and maybe somebody comes in with a bad move for them and a good move for Atlanta, and we will see what happens. So Sunday could be interesting.
Look, nobody saw Nagby coming, so
no,
you can't. You
don't hear any rumors out of Atlanta, that's for sure.
No, the only rumor that I remember hearing was in 2018 that allegedly near the end of the trade window they tried to make a move for Brooks Lennon at that time and got shot down. Then they made the move the next year.
Yep.
Well, if nothing else, if we've learned is that, because I had heard, and I can't remember where I read this, that Atlanta had asked about Nagby in 2017 and were rebuffed. I have to remember if that was confirmed or not. But they had at least, kicked the tires and reached out to Portland and basically, shot their shot with Portland. Mm-hmm. But if nothing else, when they like somebody, they get persistent about it. So I'd be very interested to see where Atlanta looks in that regard.
I think the ears will be open.
You never know.
The ears will be open. The CB radio will be on. And you wait to see what people have to say. You might be surprised, and you never know. You always have to be ready for that. Justin Merrim was one that you didn't expect. Played an important role when you were able to get him. Nagby was one you didn't necessarily expect. You went back to the table on Lennon. You got that done. You're going to have a lot of teams looking to make some moves, maybe some trying to cut some salaries. You might find some deals. So Sunday could get very, very interesting.
I want to know if we start getting more interleague loans.
Yeah, it's possible with the young guys, and somebody like Campbell could be in a spot like that if there's not a lot of time for him here. If there's a team that would play him, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Nope.
So, last comment goes to Ricky. Are we sure Stephen Glass is out of this coaching search now that he has led us to CONCACAF Champions League? Love Glassy, but he did not lead us to CONCACAF Champions League. That was actually Frank DeBoer. Frank DeBoer qualified for 2 CONCACAF Champions Leagues. He did. I don't think he expected a pandemic to help him into the second one, but he did. Tata Martino qualified for 1. Frank DeBoer qualified for 2. I don't know. It's just silliness. So that's what happened. Today, Bomba de Merlo, with the reporting that Gabriel Heinze is going to sign a contract with Atlanta United next week. Bomba de CONCACAF, we think, might be U.S. Soccer Federation, that Atlanta United will be in the 2021 CONCACAF Champions League as the reigning U.S. Open Cup holders. There was not a tournament this year. I'm sure more ridiculousness and buffoonery will happen before we go live tomorrow at 10 o'clock for the Power Hour. I welcome it at this point. And we've got MLS Cup tomorrow night. Remember, MLS Cup watch-along will only be on Twitch. 8 o'clock when we're starting. Kickoff is set for 8:41 on that, and it's on Big Fox. So
nothing is real with time.
We're starting at 8, so we will see you at 8 o'clock tomorrow for that. We will see you for the Power Hour at 10. Jarrett, thanks for joining in when you did, ninjaing yourself in the door.
That's what I'm here for, and I'll be here tomorrow night.
Excellent. And tomorrow night, hopefully we see a bunch of you too, and hopefully we see some of you for the Power Hour. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. Thanks as always, and much plata, y'all. Have a good night.
Much plata, y'all.